From the wastelands of the internet, I have once again come. It is I, the Nomad. Yes, bringing you news of the week as the week roundup goes. And I see you, James. Where is everyone? We'll see how they all come in today. It's going to be one of those days, I think. It's out here. It's a nice drizzly day that nobody freaking appreciates, which when I say nobody appreciates, it means I don't want it. But I mean, it is what it is. I know a lot of people like rain. I'm not one of those people, right? Just, just letting you all know. But I've got news, so let's get started right away, shall we? All right, right off the bat here. Zelensky's sacks top general Zaluzny. Zaluzny. Okay, whatever. Ni Zaluzny. All right. As war with Russia drags on. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dismissed General Valery, whatever, all right, Commander in Chief, not trying to butcher your name, sir, and I'm refusing to butcher it anymore, citing a need to reinvigorate the country's armed forces as the war with Russia approaches its third year. Colonel Zerisky Zerieski, all right, replaced the outgoing commander in a statement released Thursday. The move is likely to spark opposition as he was, who held the post since July of 2021, remained popular among the Ukrainians. Hey, Jacob. Yeah, I'm going to be real blunt. You want to know why things are happening? Why he got sacked? This is why. Frontline Ukrainian infantry units report acute shortage of soldiers. This is from WAPO, and if WAPO's reporting it, they can tell you it's really bad. The Ukrainian military is facing a critical shortage of infantry, leading to exhaustion and diminished morale on the front lines. Military personnel in the field said this week. A perilous new dynamic for Kiev nearly 2 years into the grinding, bloody war with Russia. In interviews across the front line in recent days, nearly a dozen soldiers and commanders told WAPO that personnel deficits were their most critical problem now. As Russia has regained the offensive initiative on the battlefield, it's winter, all right, and is stepping up its attacks. One battalion commander in a mechanized brigade fighting in the eastern Ukraine said his unit currently has fewer than 40 infantry troops, the soldiers deployed in the frontline trenches who hold off the Russian assaults. A fully equipped battalion has more than 200, the commander said. Okay. A fully equipped battalion in the United States military has about 800 to 1,000. Okay? A fully equipped infantry battalion or infantry company is about 100. So you can tell there's a manpower shortage happening now in the Ukraine. And this was always going to be the end result when once Russia failed to achieve immediate victory and refused to back down. This was always going to be the result. You've got to convince the Russians to stop fighting now. But the Russians aren't Americans. And the Russian media isn't the American media. No, man. No, man. What are you saying here? What are you trying to indicate here? I'm being very blunt. Okay? There's a lot of people, and I mean a lot, that think that propaganda and all this other stuff is ineffective and doesn't really work and it's a heinous thing and there never should be anything like propaganda and everything else. While they fail to recognize that propaganda is nothing more, all right, than one person's point of view or one group's point of view. Propaganda, as far as lying or being dishonest, is one thing. But propaganda in and of itself is neither. It's not lying, okay? It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be inaccurate. It just has to be a specific point of view. Now, you can come back and go, well, there's lies of omission. No, man, there's lies of omission. That's true. But there's also a consequence of people when they constantly bitch about the propaganda going on in Russia. What they are really saying is you're not listening to my propaganda. You're not being honest with me. Now, is Russian media, is Pravda and all those other guys an honest broker of news? No. But unfortunately, you can say the same thing about our news. I would like to say that our news is honest, but we know now, all right, from the last 2 decades, just how dishonest our news is. So we don't have a high ground anymore to sit up there and claim that what's going on over here is heinous. And what's worse is WAPO and a lot of these other guys have been hiding how bad it's been for the Ukrainians. And it is bad for the Ukrainians. And look, a lot of people made a huge issue of Tucker, he went and interviewed Putin. So what? These are the people who are decrying this, the people who are all upset about it were the same SOBs that went out there during the Vietnam War to interview Ho Chi Minh. They're the same son of a bitches that were freaking interviewing Saddam Hussein while we had troops in combat. And yet you want me now to go, you gotta be upset. You gotta be upset at Tucker Carlson. Why? Please tell me why. Now you have a situation, and like I said, Russia can always throw more men at the situation. What are you going to do when the Ukrainians run out of troops? We can give them arms, we can give them equipment, but you know what we can't do? We can't train them in our methods of warfare overnight. And part of the reason is that in order to effectively fight the way Americans fight, you need something that we've always attempted to try and ensure, and that is complete and total air supremacy. Air superiority first, and air supremacy. Then our combat arms, our combined arms attacks are flipping awesome, assuming you really want to do it. But if the enemy, in this case the Russians, are willing to take the casualties and are willing to put people in the field, it turns into a meat grinder. And in a meat grinder kind of an environment, guess who has the advantage? The Russians do. You can kill one and a half Russians, 2 Russians to every Ukrainian, and the Ukrainians still lose. So if you want people to stop dying, we're going to have to come up to a consensus of what you're going to allow, and you've got to understand it isn't going to be your way or the highway, because your way, okay, ensures there will never be another Ukrainian state because the Ukrainians will be completely destroyed by the end of this war. Just putting it out there, folks. I'm just keeping it real. Now people thump their chest, keeping it real, keeping it real. Now, I disagree with some of the things about that Putin said. Obviously, I'm not a huge Putin aficionado. I know what he is. Okay, but there were legitimate concerns, and like I have said, the United States really doesn't have a dog in this fight. If you want to go back and say, "Well, we need to support democracy," show me one. Show me one that we're trying to support. Because supporting Zelensky isn't supporting democracy. It's not. And unless you're willing to put U.S. troops on the ground to try and defend this crap, you're completely wrong. And let's be perfectly frank here. The only reason we're involved is because Biden's getting money from them. That's the truth of it. On to the next story. Brown University students end their hunger strike that aimed to help the Palestinians. Pro-Palestinian protesters at Brown University ended a week-long hunger strike on Friday after failing to force trustees to divest the endowment from companies which profit from human rights abuses in the Palestinians. I can't continue to start, and you people won't listen to me. A hunger strike at Providence, Rhode Island school was the latest confrontation between pro-Palestinian protesters and Brown administrators, coming after at least 60 students were arrested in two separate demonstrations last semester. Brown, which has a reputation for embracing social activism, has angered some faculty and alumni with its treatment of pro-Palestinian activists since the current Israeli-Hamas conflict began in October. The university was a hotbed of student protests against apartheid in the 1980s, including hunger strikes. Brown eventually divested its endowment of companies doing business with South Africa. Look, guys, you want to sit up there and stop doing business? You're not suggesting a limb shit global homo installed regime is just bloodthirsty. Come on, man. You want to talk about bloodthirsty? You're seeing it right now. You see, you got a bunch of people going out there. Oh, these Palestinians, they're hungry. Oh my God! Oh, we gotta do something. You know what? I'm gonna go on a hunger strike. I'm gonna go on a hunger strike. And the protest about you guys Israelis and the evil things you're doing to Palestinians. I'm gonna go to hunger. Hey, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Hop on over. Hop on over to Palestine. Hop on over to the Gaza. Go out there and show your support and demand fair treatment and see what it gets you. Come on. All you freaking supporters of Hamas, all you butchers, you supporter butchers of the slaughtering of children because you cheered it on. Yeah. Hop on over. Join the conflict. Show your courage. Show the depth of your commitment. Weren't we just talking? Is it just me? But weren't we just talking about propaganda? Weren't we just talking about lies? You see, these people can't help but lie. If you're targeting civilians. What's a civilian? Since you want to use a term, and the term is civilian, how do you define a civilian? How do you identify a civilian in Gaza? Please, you're telling me that they're targeting, which means they're intentionally trying to kill, quote unquote, innocent civilians. Okay. Well, what evidence do you have that they're targeting innocent civilians? Are innocent civilians dying? In the way you talk about innocent, which is another term I would like to have a discussion with you on. If you're going to sit up there and say that they're being targeted, people that have no dog in the fight, people that are not involved in Hamas at all, if you're going to say that those people are being targeted, show me. Show me the evidence that you say that targeting is taking place. Now, if you're saying they're dying, yeah, well, you and I might come to an agreement. Why are they dying? Why? Could it possibly be? Could it possibly just just putting it out there? Could it possibly be because Hamas, all right, is hiding behind them? Or could it even possibly be that you don't know what the hell you're talking about? That you don't know what an innocent civilian is? That you don't recognize what the enemy is? Could that possibly be it? All right. And while all this is going on, while all this other crap is happening, how many people saw this? Venezuela is backing up its threats to annex parts of Guyana and secure access to some of the world's largest oil finds in more than a decade by moving light tanks, missile-equipped patrol boats, and armored carriers. All right, to they're talking about personnel carriers, by the way. All right, to the two countries' border in what is quickly turning into a new security challenge for the Biden administration. It's not a security challenge for the Biden administration. It's a security challenge for the Guyanans, sure. The deployment, visible in satellite images made public on Friday and in videos recently posted by Venezuelan's military on social media, is a significant escalation in Caracas's attempt to obtain new leverage over its neighbor's newfound energy reserves. It comes despite a written agreement reached in December with Maduro and the Guyanese President Ali that denounced the use of force and called for a commission to address the territorial disputes. Oh, that'll work! A communist dictator! I got an agreement with a communist dictator's freaking signature on it. That'll work! Peace in our times, folks! I got an agreement. He signed on the dotted line. Adolf signed. Peace in our times. Right? I don't think anybody's noticing what's going on down there. I think that Venezuela is going to very probably attack and it's going to destabilize that region. And it's going to destabilize that region in more ways than one because another leftist, right, in charge of Brazil has basically sold out his people to them. People in Brazil are in for a world of hurt. It's coming down, folks. They're busy going after Bolsonaro. Oh, we're going to get rid of Bolsonaro. Meanwhile, the Brazilian military is like, what the hell's going on here? Enjoy. It didn't work out so well for Poland, did it? Okay, I'm going to be real blunt with people. Okay, when it comes to World War II in Poland. And I want people to understand this. And I'm not justifying Hitler's aggression, all right, in the sense of what Hitler's true plans were, because that's obvious to anybody and everybody, which is why you needed to stand up to Hitler before he took the Sudetenlands, dumbasses. But when Hitler was talking about he wanted to return to the Danzig corridor, he wanted that return for the Danzig corridor, all right, so that he could prep for his invasion, which he had always talked about, of Russia and storming over Poland to do it. His excuse about the Danzig corridor being something that never should have been given to Poland, however, had merit. Gdansk, which used to be Danzig, okay, and had been part of Prussia, all right, since the founding of Prussia and since the founding of Germany under Bismarck. The Danzig Corridor was an affront to the German people. It was an artificially created situation. I don't think people understand that. So the excuse of, hey, we want this back that the Germans were talking about had merit in their minds. I'm not saying that Hitler was doing it for different reasons, because Hitler was. But see, this becomes the whole thing about, remember what we were talking about earlier? Propaganda. The deceit of propaganda concerning the Danzig corridor that the that Hitler was pushing, right, was he was doing it for he wasn't doing it to return the German people to the German people. He was doing it in reality so that he could have a stepping stone on his way to take out Russia, right? For Lebensraum. That's where the deceit was. The problem that you're having, though, is that when somebody starts pointing out, hey, look, they had a legitimate concern. There was a legitimate German concern there. They're not wrong. It wasn't an inaccurate statement. I just want to point that out. So when people talk about, well, why did the Germans sit up there and listen to Hitler? I don't understand. Yeah, you got to take a look at the real situation, not the pretend situation that you think you know. If you're trying to understand why the German people, at the beginning of the war especially, supported everything Hitler was doing. Because he was basically hiding in plain sight, but he was hiding what his true intentions were by bringing up actually legitimate points that resonated with the German people. Whether they resonated with the international community is absolutely immaterial to the support that people were giving to that monster. Now, if you want to talk about some of the things that he did, the Anschluss, or what's the Anschluss, no man? What's the Anschluss, right? And things like that. Okay, we can talk about those things. But you'd better come to terms with the actual reality rather than you'll pretend you know everything that's going on, because you don't. Or you're being dishonest when you ignore the import of some of these other things. That's one of the problems that we're having right now in the Ukraine right now, folks, is because everyone keeps talking about, oh, the Ukrainians, oh, the Ukrainians. You're only looking at it from one side. Why haven't you taken a look at it from Russia's side? And I'm not talking Putin's side. I'm talking Russia's side. Do the Russian people, all right, have an interest in what's going on? And do they have legitimate concerns? Yes or no? Now, that doesn't mean that there's a result there's a resolution. Okay? It doesn't mean there's going to be an easy resolution without conflict. I'm not saying that. But if you don't understand what's really going on, then how are you actually going to fight what's happening? Ignoring it doesn't work. Kind of like this. From Politico. Biden faces his Comey moment. It felt like a Comey moment for me. That was the assessment of a top Biden campaign official, all right, watching the special counsel Robert Hur's report explode Thursday. In July of 2016, FBI Director James Comey ripped into Hillary Clinton for being extremely careless with classified information and noted there was evidence of potential violations of the law, assessments that played into the narrative that helped tank her presidential campaign. He then delivered the actual news. Well, no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. In a scathing report, the Justice Department's Inspector General later harshly criticized Comey for his actions. No, he should have been jailed for his actions. Like Comey, the Biden official argued Herr put his thumb on the scale during the election season. All right? Trust me, Comey was trying to exonerate Hillary. And in fact, if you remember back in 2016, there were a bunch of dumbasses on YouTube, and I can bring them up if you want, the YouTube videos, right? Where people go, she was exonerated. She wasn't guilty. She was exonerated. Comey exonerated her. No, he didn't. He admitted that what she did was wrong. He admitted what she did was illegal. He admitted that she should have been charged with crimes. And then turned around and goes, "I didn't want to charge her because I don't think I can get a conviction." And what did they do in the Biden case? With all the illegal documents that he had? And he wasn't president, folks. He had classified information he never should have had access to. Because he was never the president. He called good old Biden totally irresponsible. Claimed that in this report, her claimed in this report that what he did was absolutely criminal and that he should be charged. And then turned around and said, "Well, because he's an old man who's dawdled and addled and can't remember even when his son was son died. All right, what year his son died? No one will prosecute him." But we're going to go after Trump still. We're going to go after Trump. We're going to keep going after Trump. Yeah. Well, no reasonable Democrat would. I mean, no reasonable person would actually convict Biden. Let's switch gears a little bit here, folks. How many people saw this story? Larry David's elbow attack slammed as stone deaf by Star Trek actor Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton slammed Larry David as tone deaf 2 days after the Curb Your Enthusiasm creator grabbed Elmo's face and throttled the Muppet on the Today Show. So I heard about Larry David assaulting Elmo on live television. All right. But I didn't watch it until now because I knew it would upset me. The next generation actor wrote in a lengthy Facebook post, "Holy crap, it's worse than I thought. And what the F is wrong with that guy? Elmo is like the best friend to multiple generations of children. In the Sesame Street universe, Elmo is a child who is currently putting mental health and caring for others in the spotlight." A child putting mental health issues in the spotlight should already be a problem. Okay? And I'll be honest with you, Elmo, if he was a quote unquote friend of yours, Will Wheaton, right, explains a lot as to why you are such a lost child still today running around thinking he's an adult. I saw the bit. I almost pissed my pants laughing because it was funny. It was absolutely funny as hell. his response was even better, right? Mr. Larry, Elmo liked you before, the 3.5-year-old Muppet said to David, as David raced off saying, let's go back to the couch and talk about how you're feeling. Somebody had to do it, said David. It's a freaking puppet. Hey, Will, and all you people who are upset about this, okay? Yes, Larry David not making enough money on television shows. That's probably true. All right. But let me explain something to you folks. It's a puppet. The problem with all this is these people running around going, "Hey, Elmo!" Elmo has been a hated character for years. It's been the butt of the jokes for freaking years, folks. Why? Because back in the day, I know people are like, no man, don't start this now, don't start this back in your day. Well, back in my day, there was a puppet show called Punch and Judy. All right. Now I had no problem with Sesame Street. All right, until Sesame Street got political. When their focus became political, you ended up with a problem. When you tried to push social activism rather than correct behavior towards other people, when your agenda became more important, okay, people stopped watching Sesame Street. People started getting away from Sesame Street. When it became all about Black Lives Matter crap, pushing the homosexual agenda crap. You had a character on Sesame Street called Oscar the Grouch. And Oscar the Grouch, believe it or not, Oscar the Grouch was probably the most important character on Sesame Street. Now, why? Why could you say that, Nomad? How could you say that? Is it because you live in a trash can? Regardless of where I live. Okay. Regardless, Oscar the Grouch demonstrated that there were people who had a different point of view and that you had to tolerate them. You see, that was the whole point of Oscar the Grouch. But Oscar the Grouch became less and less Oscar the Grouch, and then eventually became less and less a part of Sesame Street. And when they did that, Sesame Street got away from its actual decent programming, all right, and went into social activism. People can have different points of view. The whole Ernie and Bert skits early on were far more, uh, you know, illustrative of what happens when people who are completely different are forced to have to get along, and that they can. And then it got turned into this whole dynamic of Ernie and Bert are gay. You didn't even need to bring it up. You brought up sexuality, all right, adult sexuality, and you tried to ram it down the throats of freaking 3 and 4-year olds. And if you come back and go, oh, no, 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 that's not political, that's not political, yes, it is. So as far as Elmo being attacked, it's a freaking puppet, folks. It's a puppet. And Will, Elmo's gonna attack. Go F yourself, dude. Grow the F up. Grow up, man. Man claims higher power approved of his 1:20 a.m. trespassing. After being arrested again for trespassing on the grounds of an Ohio library, a suspect explained to police that a higher power allowed him to be on the property at 1:20 a.m. Carnell Glitton claimed that he had checked with Christ and secured permission, according to the police report. Glitton, 28, was arrested early Saturday outside a public library in Sandusky, a city an hour outside of Cleveland. Glitton, at the right, was using an exterior outlet to charge his phone, cops reported. Glitton, who has twice previously been busted for trespassing at the library, cited Christ when the patrolman asked what he was doing on the property. Charged with criminal trespass, Glitton was booked into the Erie County Jail, where he remains locked up on $1,750 bond. Following a 2023 arrest, Glitton, who is nicknamed Cloud, told police that he was from Canada and that he was wandering around Ohio for the past year. Christ could not be reached for comment. We have a mental health crisis in this country because we have no place to put people who are criminally insane. And when I use the term criminally insane, I am not talking about just violent criminals who could bring harm to themselves and other people. There are people who are criminally insane. They are insane and they will commit crime after crime. Even if the crimes are somewhat small, like this, the guy charging his phone, right? The guy has mental problems and he needs help to prevent his delusions from becoming worse. So he can take back control of his life. You need to have a place for these people, not for violent offenders. That's prison. But we need a place, a mental institution, so these people can get real help. There's always been a type of stigma attached to some of this stuff, and I can understand it to a degree. But there needs to be a place where we can take people to keep them off of the streets so that they can get the help that they need. And we haven't had that because they were intentionally closed. Okay? Everybody remembers the movie. The movie that killed mental health for people in my opinion. And it's not that the portrayals were necessarily inaccurate, especially from time to time. Okay? The things happened. Okay? No, man, what are you referring to? I'm talking about the big magnus opus of Jack Nicholson, One Who Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest. There were places that had that, James. Yeah, I don't deny that. Okay, I don't deny that children were not attacked, weren't attacked and stuff like that. But that's not the only reason those places were closed. All right, and were there abuses that did take place in insane asylums and things like that? Yes, they did. There were. Okay, But that doesn't change the fact that these things are needed. Okay, you got to understand that. Reminder: when recklessly driving your speeding unregistered motorcycle through city streets while being pursued by the police, do not record your illegal exploits and upload the video to YouTube. Also, don't warn a fellow rider that we're going to do illegal shit. I've talked to men and women that it happened to, more, three or four or more. No, I'm not saying it. Am I in denial? No, I'm not saying that those things didn't happen. All right. I also know that there there's still a need to put these things together. Okay, I'm not excusing the misbehavior, but back to this. Javan Gomez. All right, 24, made those mistakes last month when racing through St. Petersburg, Florida streets atop his yellow Suron Ultra B, an electric motorcycle. Via a helmet mounted camera, Gomez recorded himself driving on one wheel, going through red lights, riding the wrong way, and traveling on sidewalks. When an unmarked police vehicle and squad car with lights flashing began chasing him, Gomez ta- taunted off a taunt new tongue, everybody, new tongue. Right. Gomez taunted officers, gave them the finger, and screamed "F you" as he yelled at one cop. "Why you so mad?" mockingly declared. "Oh, I'm scared." A 9 minute and 26-second video of the January 23rd encounter was uploaded the following day to Gomez's YouTube account. Riding, riding Nitwit J for the enjoyment of his 92 subscribers. The clip, seen above, is titled "Cops Tried to Take Down Suron." Investigators yesterday morning caught up with Gomez, who was identified via various contacts with, with him seen in the city and through his social media accounts. He was charged with fleeing and eluding police, a felony, and 3 misdemeanors. Cops seized a firearm for him when he was taken into custody. Gomez is locked up in the county jail on $1,650 bond in advance of a court hearing this afternoon. He is seen below his mugshot. Dude, this is why stupidity should be painful. All right? Taking pictures of yourself committing crimes and then uploading it to a video, basically trying to brag about your exploits, gets you caught. This is one of the dumbest things. Folks, there are stupid criminals out there. I have more stories about stupid criminals, but this is just one of them. You deserve to go to jail, dude. You deserve to go to jail. Now, I'll be honest with you. In this specific case, this specific case, when people do things that are just absolutely stupid, I honestly think stupidity should be painful and people should be caned in the buttocks. A couple of canings, and this guy may have a different attitude toward jumping on his bike and riding around doing stupid shit. At least he should learn. I'm not going to upload this and get my ass beaten because I'm a dumbass. People are worried. Okay, from Bloomberg News. Just go away. Tesla asks which jobs are critical, stoking layoff fears because the economy is doing so well. All right, let's do this here, folks. I'm sure this is we can read this probably a little bit easier if we do it like this, where I can read the storyline. Tesla staff are bracing for potential job cuts after managers were asking to affirm whether each of their employees' positions were critical. U.S. managers had to make a binary assessment of their deputies' roles in recent days, according to people familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified because the information is private. In other words, you basically did something that's harming your boss, and, and yet you're stupid enough to get stuff more done. Mr. Carter, don't believe that. Anyway, U.S. managers, I'm sorry. The ask was consistent with Elon Musk's emphasis on cost-cutting efforts in the midst of a marked slowdown in Tesla's sales growth. The chief executive officer is known to take an unsparing approach with the companies he runs. In late 2020, he gave Twitter staff an ultimatum to either commit to his hardcore ethos or leave. Tesla representatives didn't respond to a request for comment. The car maker's shares extended gains before the start of regular trading, rising as much as 3% to $1.61. The stock has slumped 26% this year. Okay, what this indicates is overall there's a slowdown. All right, now, why is there a slowdown in Tesla? Okay, first of all, Tesla is now facing increasing competition from the larger car manufacturers like Toyota, Honda, Ford, GM, etc. And when it comes to the electric car market, where basically it had carved out a niche for itself and was really the only main electric car on the road. For the longest time, he basically had carte blanche running around. But now other car companies are actually really trying to compete in that marketplace. But there's a problem with competing in that marketplace in that as more of these vehicles started to actually come online, especially the Ford vehicles, which really made a major push, okay, the realization that there are other issues involved structurally within the country, specifically when it comes to things like charging the electric power, people started going, wait a minute here. And so they started becoming a little bit more suspect at these things, or circumspect, I should say. Throw on top of that an economy which, regardless of what claims you want to hear, is slow and is not robust due to inflation. And there's too many idiots out there. And I mean absolute morons. What am I referring to? I'll give you an example of something. I recently saw a a a video, okay? And the video it was a political ad basically, all right? Where they were trying to claim that the person was claiming that all these people trying to lower the minimum wage, all right, is wrong because in order to deal with inflation, you got to increase the minimum wage. You got to increase wages, and that'll fix inflation. This is the kind of thinking, all right, of people in California, right, that they have. Well, if you just raise the minimum wage, inflation won't be an issue. You can inflate your way out of inflation. These are a couple of the ads that you're starting to see. It's just dumb. It's dumb. Just dumb. Who is trying to reduce the minimum wage? It was a, like I said, it was a political ad. It was a political ad trying to talk about, oh, we raised the minimum wage and people are doing so much better with inflation going on right now, and the Republicans are trying to reduce it, and they, and Trump is trying to reduce it. It's just dumb shit, dude. It's dumb shit. Rhoda McDaniel, RNC chairwoman, plans to step down. Okay. The chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, Rhoda McDonald Daniel, has told former President Donald Trump she is planning to step down shortly after the South Carolina primary on December 24th, according to two people familiar with the plans. Trump is then likely to promote the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party, Michael Whatley, as her replacement, according to several people familiar with the discussions. Under the arcana of the committee's rules, however, Mr. Trump cannot simply install someone, and a new election must take place. All right, why am I bringing up this story? When this story was first announced, folks, these people were going absolutely nuts, as if somehow Rhoda McDaniels was a great Trump supporter. Rhoda McDaniels is an anti-Trumper, and she has been from the very beginning. She has done everything, and the Republican National Committee has done everything that they can to prevent Trump's reelection, all right, or even being elected in the first place. And they are having a come to Jesus moment right now. The reason she's stepping down is because she is getting obliterated. The RNC is in a lot of trouble because their base is at war with the leadership, specifically when it comes to fundraising. And the leadership has not responded to their complaints. In fact, they've actively poo-pooed them. And Ronna McDaniels was one of the people at the very height of that, at the very top of that. You know what the best part of the second term will be? What, James? Just out of curiosity, what? Getting rid of this woman is a start, starting to it's an attempt to try and hide the fact that these people are full of anti-Trumpers. And oh well, Trump's going to pick his own person, and Trump's going to sit there and take control, and Trump is. They were saying that this woman stepping down shows that Trump's in trouble. In fact, if you when this was first announced, the Drudge Report in their little highlight did MAGA down. Rhoda is retiring. MAGA down. As if somehow she was a MAGA supporter. She's not. She never has been. If only, James. If only. Speaking of Trump, special counsel warns of significant immediate threat to Mar-a-Lago case witnesses. A special counsel prosecuting Donald Trump has asked the judge in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case to reconsider an order the government argues could identify more than 24 witnesses and threaten their safety and testimony. Trump's lawyers have asked for unredacted documents to be turned over, which lawyers for the special counsel Jack Smith want to block. In a 24-page filing in court, all right, in Florida, prosecutors for Jack Smith said the court applied the wrong legal standard when the U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon, who is overseeing the case, ordered an unsealing of the materials. Cannon issued an order in response on Friday that delayed her initial decision. The filing notes an exhibit, all right, that includes information about uncharged potentially obstructive conduct by a defendant and speculation about witness tampering. All right, in other words, they're trying to hide the fact that they don't have a case. They're trying to say, they're saying, oh no, we got to hide these witnesses because, well, this witness, we haven't charged them yet, but we're speculating that they were obstructing, and that the reason he was obstructing is because he may have been witness tampering. Yeah, it's a witness tampering case. We're gonna so in other words, a witness that we don't know is a witness. All right, that Trump is tampering with witnesses that he doesn't know is a witness. And Cannon stood up there and came back in her case, by the way. The reason this is all done is because Cannon came back and said, what evidence do you have that these people are under threat? And he didn't provide any. With this latest problem that's been created because the special counsel decided not to charge Biden because he's a, a mentally deficient adult old man. Any case that any chance, all right, of how serious this was. Talking about the British. Oh, these are serious charges. This is serious things that they're talking about. This is serious. This is serious. Dude, it's not serious. The case against Trump is not serious. It was made for it up out of freaking whole cloth. Regardless of how you feel about him, Britisher, the bullshit you espouse is just that. It's bullshit. It's politically motivated, and everybody can. But apparently, you, the Britisher, all right, coming from overseas, you understand American politics better than everybody else. No, you don't, dude. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You never did when it comes to American politics because you don't understand the weaknesses and the strengths within the American political system. This was obviously a political stunt. It was obvious from the get go. You constantly rely upon a group of people called the press who have no interest in telling you the truth. Tell me, Britisher, you think that the press is all about the truth? You going to say that about COVID-19 and the response to the government? The government was totally upfront and honest and truthful about what was going on? Are you going to try and make that claim that the CDC was trying to tell people the truth, that they weren't being political? Is that what you're going to try to assert? At this point in time, so Judge Cannon sits up there and rightly points out, you haven't provided me any evidence or any real reason for freaking I should be keeping this stuff sealed. But see, the documents that they're looking for aren't just documents of who's going to be witness of what. The documents that they're trying to hide are the documents that they're trying to say is the basis for their investigation. And the problem is that once Trump lawyers get the documents that they claim was the basis of the investigation, it's going to be proven fraudulent and the whole case is going to get tossed. And everybody sees it coming. So right now, the true most serious cases, all right, two of the most serious criminal cases are about to get tossed. The one in Georgia, all right, and this one. Well, what about the January 6th? I'm just laughing my ass off because we all know what's going to happen with that one. Okay? We all know what's going to happen with that Why doesn't he stick with criticism of his own government? Well, he's trying to give a wider look at the audience. And the British are, me and the British don't disagree in certain areas, all right? Especially when it comes to our view from a society to of a societal perspective in the sense of how we see the generation of society, right? The problem that the Britisher has is the his solutions and his outlooks are still very European. And what works in Europe and doesn't work in Europe has no bearing on whether or not something works or doesn't work within the United States. Okay? Because the systems are are predicated on different things. And this is something that he's never understood. Assailant. Nurse should have expected to be punched. After punching a female nurse in the face, a Florida woman, surprise, surprise, declared that she was mentally ill and that the victim should have expected to be hit by a psych patient. Latika Poncetta Baranin, 32, was transported by the police yesterday to Morton Plant Hospital in Clearwater for treatment. As part of the admission process, Barron, at the right, was required to change into a hospital gown. During the process, the defendant asked the victim, "Am I being Baker acted?" Florida's Baker Act, right, covers individuals that are deemed to be impaired and in need of crisis services. Told that she was, in fact, being involuntarily admitted, Barron then punched the allegedly punched the female victim in the face, leaving her with a minor scratch and bruising. Several witnesses to the scene, a Clearwater Police Department officer reported. The victim, 33, told police that Barron explained that she was a psych patient and that the victim works in mental health and knows how this works. Okay, I'm a psych patient, so let the beatings begin. Despite her apparent belief that she would escape unscathed after walloping the nurse, who was in a blue uniform with her hospital ID attached, Barron was arrested, charged with battery on the health services personnel, a felony. She was booked last night into the county lockup where bond has yet to be set. Barron reportedly added that she would get away with this and that the nurse should have expected to be hit by a psych. Ah, my goodness. Snow! It's cold and snowy in Alaska. Fuel oil is thickening and roofs are collapsing. It's snowing in Alaska, folks. Much of Alaska has plunged into a deep freeze in wintertime, all right, with temperatures well below zero. No shit. Anchorage has seen some of its coldest temperatures in years. Psych patient hit the nurse. Gotta be a reason. Yeah, she was being arrested. Was mad. Didn't want to be there. Anchorage has surpassed 100 inches of snow this week, the earliest date the state's largest city has ever hit that mark. For much of last week, temperatures were minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder in Fairbanks, an inland city of about 32,000 that is a popular destination for seeing northern lights. In other far-flung towns, the thermometer hovered between minus 30 Fahrenheit, all right, and minus 20 Fahrenheit for days. That's a pretty solid streak. It's cold winter. Not excuse. You just want the entire story. I understand. Imagine snow. Imagine that you're seeing snow in Alaska. Imagine. Kind of hard to understand that, folks. That's a cold night. It is cold. Jury awards climate scientist Michael Mann $1 million in defamation lawsuit. A jury on Thursday awarded $1 million to climate scientist Michael Mann, who sued a pair of conservative writers 12 years ago after they compared his depictions of global warming to a convicted child molester. Mann, a professor of climate science at the University of Pennsylvania, rose to fame for a graph first published in 1998 in the Journal of Nature that was dubbed the hockey stick for its dramatic illustration of a warming planet. The work brought Mann wide exposure, but also many skeptics, including the two writers Mann took to court for comments he said affected his career and reputation in the United States and internationally. It feels great, Mann said Thursday after the six-person jury delivered its verdict. It's a good day for us. It's a good day for science. No, it's not. All right. In 2012, a libertarian think tank named the Competitive Enterprise Institute published a blog by Rand Simberg and his fellow at the organization that compared the investigations into Mann's work to the case of Jerry Sandusky, a former assistant coach at Penn State University who was convicted of sexually assaulting multiple children. At the time, Mann also worked at Penn State. Mann's research was investigated after his and other scientists' emails were leaked in 2009 in an incident that brought further scrutiny of the hockey stick graph, which with skeptics claiming that Mann manipulated data. He did. Investigations by Penn State and others found no misuse of the data, but his work continued to draw attacks, particularly from conservatives, because your internal investigation was a bunch of bullshit, which is why he no longer works there. Mann said Mann could be said to be the Jerry Sandusky of climate science, except for instead of molesting children, he molested and tortured data. All right, you get down through here and you find out that this award, they gave him $1 in compensatory damages and awarded him $1 million. As of today, after 12 years, the jury awarded him $1 in compensatory damages. All right. And then said, we're going to give him $1 million in punitive damages because this guy, they did a dollar's worth of compensatory damages. Oh, yeah, he was a data diddler. Now, does that make any sense to anybody? The jury said the damage actually done to this guy was worth $1. And then turns out, but we want to punish these guys. They denied climate science. And that's a win for climate science. The damage done to this guy's reputation was, by the jury, seen as $1 worth. That's funny. I was just joking, but someone else wrote it out for me. $1 worth of damage, but we're going to punish you $1 million because you denied science in our minds. The jury, everyone in that jury, should never be allowed on a jury again because they are not rational people. That's how irrational this shit is. Just putting it out there, folks. I could have done a ton of climate stories. There were a ton of climate stories out this week, including one where we're all doomed. It's all the the raising of the Earth's temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius that was going to doom us into oblivion. All right, from some of the climate scientists claimed. All right, they have new data that we're already past that point. So what's the point? This time they discovered the data again, not in actual measurements of temperature, but because we're seeing it in sponges. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. We didn't see any actual temperatures, but we know we're past it. We passed the point of no return. We still have Arctic ice, but we passed the point of no return. And I'm not a man-made climate denier. I'm a Chicken Little denier. I always have been. From the Washington Post. Why are Republicans more likely to suffer hearing loss? I don't know. Screeching leftists in their ears? We've been embarrassed to admit it, but the first time we saw nothing remarkable about the most detailed map of hearing loss we've ever seen. The results of a broad effort, all right, by the CDC. The map revealed about 38 million Americans, all right, have at least some trouble hearing in both ears, and that hearing loss is greatest in areas with the oldest populations. How many millions of dollars went to this study? Older people have greater hearing loss. Oh, shit. Really? Older people have hearing loss. That didn't shock us. All right, since older folks, particularly men, are at greater risk of hearing loss. As it turned out, we were just getting started. The hearing loss model, led by David Reed, a health data virtuoso at NORC, all right, at the University of Chicago, teases out detailed geographic estimates from hallowed, top shelf data sets around the government, including professional measurement of Americans' hearing from the National Center for Health Statistics, demographics from the CDC. About 12% of Americans have at least some hearing loss in both ears, the model found. Many of those people have something in common: age. You set aside those groups and look at people between the ages of 35 and 64, people who have yet to experience most age related hearing loss, but are old enough to have been exposed to a lifetime of a rural assault or audio assault, right? We see some new patterns. For example, hearing loss shows up most frequently in communities with more jobs, all right, in natural resources, construction, and maintenance industries, which makes sense given the exposure to noise. No shit. It's also more common with lower population density and smaller minority populations, which again feels right given that white Americans are more than twice as likely to lose at least some of their hearing losses than their black or Hispanic friends. All right. Okay, so hearing loss appears to be yet another manifestation of the urban rural divide. At most, we figure that these trends merited a brief mention in one of the department's voluminous reports. But then we read the paper again and noticed something that we hadn't clock before. Those living in rural areas experienced higher rates of hearing loss, perhaps due to potential noise exposure from outdoor work and recreation, such as forestry, all terrain vehicles, and recreational firearms. Oh, what a frickin' surprise. And this is a news story from the AP, folks. Oh, for WAPO, excuse me. WAPO thought this was news. From the Washington Post, migrants arrested by ICE agents in Phoenix are not suspects in the NYPD cop beating who fled the scene, New York City sources. Widely publicized images of three handcuffed migrants sitting in Arizona dirt were not members of the crew who beat up two NYPD cops in New York Square late this month, law enforcement told the Post. Those four suspects, still apparently on the lam, Darvin Andres Gomez, Kelvin Savata Arocha, Wilson Juarez, and Yoman Riveron, are believed to be by the New York authorities to have conned a church-affiliated nonprofit into helping them flee the city on their way to California. ICE spokesman Yassim Pitts O'Keefe okay, confirmed in a statement that people traveling to Phoenix from El Paso, Texas, were apprehended on February 5th and believed to be fleeing the state of New York from their suspected involved assault on multiple New York City Police Department officers. The next day, the four were transferred to the custody of ICE, all right, and enforcement and enforcement and removal operations to be processed for immigration violations. It's not clear who the men in the photo are, but the law enforcement sources said or told the Post they are definitely not the state hopping crooks authorities are looking for on the West Coast. They just had similar sounding names and were arrested on immigration warrants. Names were changed to protect the innocent. In this case, names were used to convict the innocent. Well, they're not really innocent. They're guilty. More immigration news. Her brother vanished in Mexico. Then a gunman killed her. Angelita Amarez helped to locate the remains of several hundred missing Americans while looking for her own brother, a search that ended abruptly this week when a gunman killed her. In the violence-plagued Latin American nation, even trying to track down one of the more than 100,000 people who have disappeared can be fraught with danger. Alameres, a 27-year-old single mother of two, had asked the government for protection a week ago due to intensifying threats by telephone and social media, people close to her told the AFP. But help never arrived, and on Thursday she was gunned down at a beauty salon where she worked in the city of Tecate across the border from the U.S. state of California. According to activists, she is one of 8 people killed since 2021 while searching for missing persons in Mexico. This should never have happened, said Paula Sandoval, a friend of Almaraz. Really? Somebody being gunned down at a beauty salon should never have happened? Really? If authorities had done their jobs, this wouldn't have happened. Really? Huh. Imagine that. The Mexican authorities are, I don't know, just as efficient apparently as our FBI. I feel sorry for this woman. I feel sorry for the situation. I feel sorry for the woman who's crying and said that this, her friend is upset. But what have you done to fix this? You live in a corrupt country. We all know this. You went to a corrupt government run by the cartels, all right, and sit up there and ask them for protection against the cartels who are running your country. I feel bad for this woman and everybody else. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said Friday that Amaris had protection from local authorities and that the alleged perpetrator had been identified. Everything indicates that there is no connection with her looking for the missing, he said, alluding to Amaris's ex-partner who has voluntarily attended the prosecutor's office after her murder. Right? There is possibly another reason, but I can't say more than that. Bad haircut. I don't think it was a bad haircut. I don't think that the reason this woman was gunned down was due to a bad haircut. Okay? Just put X for doubt. Okay? Andreas is right. Girardi is right. Yeah, I do enjoy saying that guy's name. It's probably the one Mexican name I can actually pronounce. Bill Maher warns Republicans not to attack Taylor Swift. She might turn the election. From TMZ News. First of all, neither Bill Maher nor Taylor Swift is going to turn the election. neither neither Taylor Swift nor Bill Maher are going to turn the election. Nor is Bob Costas. Nor is Caitlin Flanagan. Okay. Nor is Travis Kelsey. Okay. Now people are attacking poor Taylor Swift. All right. Because Taylor Swift got stupid. All right. Taylor Swift got stupid and started posting things politically, all right, because she felt pressure from certain individuals within the Hollywood set that she runs in that she had to make a stand against Trump way back in the day. And then they bullied her into making a statement in the upcoming race for Senate in Tennessee, where she's from. And surprise, 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 she's a commie leftist. Okay? But she's not going to turn the election. Oh, but people love Taylor Swift. People love her. So what? She can turn the election. She can turn the Swifties on to Trump, and she can turn them on and totally wipe him out and get them to sit up there and support Biden and go forward and everything else. Trust me, folks. The people that support her celebrity status, and I'm going to say this real bluntly. Nobody gives a shit about what Hollywood endorses. Hollywood has always been full of themselves that they are far more important and they hold far more sway in the elections than they ever have. Attacking Taylor Swift would be a mistake for Republicans. I agree because she has nothing to do with the election. If you're going to sit up there and attack somebody, attack the policies and the people who are putting those policies in place. Not calling her a stupid dimwit. If you get asked, what do you think of her? I would say she's a stupid dimwit. All right, that has a lot of fans, right? And that if people are going to vote the way she does because they like her and their reasoning for voting the way they are because they like her, then they're just as stupid as she is. Just pointing it out. I gave up on names long ago. Now, the NFL has been constantly using Taylor Swift to increase viewership. And the numbers of people watching the NFL games where Taylor Swift has a potential of showing up has dramatically increased. So the NFL has really done a good job of promoting her as a draw. The problem with that draw, to be honest, is that it's temporary. Okay? The people who are being drawn to the NFL as Taylor Swift fans are not going to stay in the NFL when Taylor Swift moves on. And I don't mean I'm just when she goes on and is doing other things, they're not going to continue to watch football. That's my point. Compared her to a chicken. Now, something that is concerning is this: ESPN, Fox, and Warner, team up to create a sports streaming platform. This is highly dangerous, folks, and not for the reasons you think. And I'll get into that. ESPN, Fox Corporation, and Warner Brothers Discovery are teaming up to create a supersized sports streaming service that will offer content from all major leagues. A deal will reshape sports and media landscape. The as yet unnamed service will be offered directly to consumers who have been able to stream all of these companies' sports content, the companies said in a statement. Each of the companies will have a one-third ownership of the new service. What this is a single place for news, all right, that these people are coming to, and it's going to end up being, all right, a a one-stop place for news. It's a monopolistic thing. If you want to watch sports, you're going to have to come to this service. That's what they're going for with this. This is highly dangerous. By the way, Vash, you are now a moderator. Please use your moderation tools, correctly. I did actually watch some games this year since the Lions have done well. The problem with having a single sports outlet, it's like the same thing with cable. We're right back to cable. All this consolidation got bungled together, and now, all right, they're going to sit up there and take total control of all your sports. So if you're a sports fan in any way, shape, or form, you're going to have to go to this service to get these sports. It's really not a good thing for anybody. It's a monopolistic type of practice. From the Daily Mail. Colorado transgender woman's refugee status in Canada is overturned after she claims she suffered persecution because of her gender identity in the United States. Transgender woman Daria Bloodworth gained refugee status in Canada after successfully arguing that a combination of gun culture and rising transphobia put her at risk in America, said CBC News. Bloodworth, 36, told the Refugee Appeal Division in 2019 that she had been stalked by a college roommate who she alleged had threatened her with a gun. Bloodworth, who is now studying biological sciences at Yukon University, claimed she was the target of threats and violence from her former landlord and a debt collection agency, according to court documents. In October of 2022, a court determined the Colorado authorities were incapable, all right, of protecting her and that her safety couldn't be guaranteed elsewhere in the United States. Now, Judge Christine Palata, all right, said that the committee failed to identify any gap in Colorado's laws, which include state-level laws to protect transgender individuals, and overturned their decision to grant the protection. Bloodworth plans to appeal the ruling to the Federal Court of Appeal in Canada. Okay, once people understand this is in Canada. It was made pretty clear that the gap, all right, from the get-go, excuse me, it was made pretty clear from the get-go that this was going to be an uphill battle winning this thing or even staying in Canada a little bit longer and not getting murdered in the United States, Bloodworth told the CBC. I honestly feel like this is home. It's not going. I'm not going to say Canada's perfect, but at least since I've moved here, I haven't been threatened with a gun or threatened with a knife. I haven't been discriminated against because I'm transgender, she said, adding, I feel like I could actually live here if I was allowed to live here. Welcome, Maddie. Welcome. By the way, you're free to come in if you want, Natty. I'm this. So this transgender person said that she was being stalked because she's transgender. She fled to Canada. Okay. And she filed a criminal complaint against her Colorado State University roommate. All right. And feels that he is stalking her, or she is stalking her, or whatever is stalking. Welcome. And how are you today?
I'm having a good day today. I am having a good day today.
Are you planning to flee to Canada?
Oh, no, nope. Mm-mm.
Are you planning to
Nor am
flee?
I planning on going to Colorado either because they're planning on implementing a pet tax or trying to get it passed through their state
a,
legislature.
a pet tax, huh?
Yeah, you haven't heard about that?
No. I have not heard about this. Okay,
The state of Colorado's legislature is trying to pass a law that, when passed, will tax every pet between $8.50 to 25 cents per pet. It's going to be a mandatory registration for your pet, and you have to designate your pet's main caretaker. Now, my question to the Colorado legislature is, if you have to do all this after the law passes, can I write my dog off on my taxes as a dependent?
Welcome. Let's see. Let's read this story here. Reaction to Colorado pet registration fee bill. I assume this is what we're referring to.
Yep, that's it.
A bill aimed at creating an online pet registry in Colorado has been postponed indefinitely. Right, less than 1 week after being introduced, the state state representative behind the bill is now reacting to receiving death threats from other legislation. Oh my god, people are upset.
Told you.
Holy
And
crap!
it's real. You're not. Yeah, and it's real. You're not sharing your screen, dude. I have no clue what you're reading unless I go to the stream.
Okay, let me let me help you out here.
I figured you'd be interested in reading about that. That's why I brought it up because
Uh,
my friend Banshee on X has been trying to get people to vote it down and getting other eyes on it and stuff because it's stupid. It's absolutely fucking preposterous.
there you
They're
go.
just digging for more money because they're going broke.
Oh yeah, that's what happens when you freaking go down the rabbit hole of socialism and thinking that there's a money spigot out there forever and a day that you can always get other people's money from.
Hmm.
All right, you should be able to see this now. I can confidently say
Yep.
that the bill is dead," said Representative England. Apparently, they're going to kill it. All right.
Okay.
State Representative Regina English, Democrat, El Paso County, told Fox 21 that the original idea behind the pet registration was inspired by concerns for senior citizens and their pets, and were created an avenue to ensure someone is designated as a caregiver for the pet should something happen to the owner, all right, be it hospitalization or other emergency. What does that have to do with the tax?
Right? You
Okay.
don't have to tax people to designate a caregiver for the dog in case the person keels over and dies. I mean, shit.
You're gonna okay.
Usually,
Now,
usually, if the person knows that they're going to outlive their pet, the pet's in the will and designated to go to a family member anyway.
yes, yes. Now, I know that you, unlike many people within the United States, are fairly well traveled, right? But I don't know if you ever spent any significant time growing up in a rural community.
Mm-mm.
Okay, growing up on a farm, you have dogs and cats, some of which are pets, some of which are strays, right? J- just putting it out there.
Mhm.
Colorado has some big cities like Denver, but for the most part, most of Colorado is very rural, right? You have farms all over the place. Are you going to tell me you're going to try and register all these pets and tax these people? Would then just say, "Well, it's not a pet."
Well, my question is, okay, it's going to be killed, but if it wasn't going to be killed, it looked like it was going to be passed. My question would be, could I put them as dependents on my taxes? Because if I have to designate, myself as the caregiver to my pet, then obviously my pet is now going to be a legally official dependent of mine. So can I not put it on my taxes as a dependent?
a, a pet
I
pets
mean,
are
I
now
know, I know it sounds like a frivolous question, but if you think about it, it makes
well.
sense.
It does until you realize another problem with that, Manny. Let's assume you're correct. Does that mean that the infamous cat lady with 65 cats gets to choose them all as dependents?
Right? I
just,
didn't say it was a perfect question.
I'm just putting it out. I mean, and what about the people who raise dogs and cats to sell?
Right?
I mean, some people raise these animals so that they can be given away to people. All right, let's be honest. All
Mm-hmm.
right, and sold.
Yep.
All right, especially some of the purebreds. Right, but you also have what have been called, puppy farms, right,
Mm-hmm.
and puppy mills and things like that. Cat mills and stuff. Do they get to claim all these as benefits?
Right? I mean, I could just imagine if this law would have gotten passed. You go to a private breeder, right? And now they have to set up something extra just so you register your pet before you leave the breeder.
I just
The
the person.
ridiculous nature of the whole thing was just it's what got me because I'm like, this is absolutely freaking ridiculous. It's I just I know you're going broke over there, but it's because you're idiots are being you want to be a sanctuary city, and
Yeah,
now all your
that is a problem for Denver.
you know
Yes.
yes, a lot of sanctuary cities now are running out of money because it's all going to the immigrants and the people that the natural born citizens of those particular sanctuary cities are now pissed off because the money isn't going to them. Well, what'd you expect?
They're actually removing them from like the community centers so they can put it in the migrants, right? Um,
There's one state that actually like shut down a school so they could put migrants in the school. So now they're not even educating their kids in the school setting anymore
yeah, yeah, man,
because they're running out of room for the illegal aliens. Because I'm gonna call them like they are. Because
they are
screw
illegal.
PC.
Yeah, we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about the illegal aliens earlier. I do have some other questions.
Yep.
Since you come along, right
Uh huh.
now, there was a woman in Tecate, all right, which is just
Mm-hmm.
south of San Diego in Mexico. All right.
Mm-hmm.
She was killed. Okay. She had been receiving
Okay.
death threats because she had been trying to uncover her what happened to her brother and his boyfriend or his girlfriend rather. And she basically uncovered a mass grave with 100 people in it.
Oof.
Okay. Um, because her investigations and everything, and so she started receiving death threats from people about uncovering the mass grave and so forth. She went to the quote unquote Mexican police to protect her, and of course this worked out really well because she ended up getting gunned down in her beautician shop in Tecate, right?
Right.
Now,
Because the Mexican police are totally not corrupt, and they're totally not in the back pockets of Mexican cartels. Nah.
well, what's interesting is the president of Mexico, AMLO, all right, had come out and said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh no, she was under complete protection."
Right.
And so,
Okay.
my question is was she being protected by the American FBI? Because that's about as effective as it was, wasn't it?
Right.
All right. I mean, the cartels are running all the things down there for right now. Right. Let's be perfectly frank.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, here's my question, though. My real question.
Okay.
Knowing the corruption levels and things like that are down there in Mexico and things like that, and this also applies to many of the Latin American countries. Okay. What would you say is a possible an actual solution that would work down there to get these people a working government that's not corrupt anymore?
See,
What
that's
what would
that's a
it
loaded
take?
question because, well, I mean, that is a loaded question because, as I learned in one of my classes when I was taking college, the simplest answer isn't necessarily the best one because you're overlooking everything that can be affected by your simple answer. Because the simple answer would be to investigate all who are involved, to find and weed out the corruption, to display the corruption, and to get everybody that is corrupted out of office. But then the question is, who do you get to do the investigation since the level of corruption runs so deep that it's even gone to the presidential levels of the country? Is there a way to remove the corruption at this point, or is it dug in too deeply?
Well, that's a good question, and I have another. You correct me if I'm wrong, right? And my view, right, of the problem is that before you go and try and fix any of that, you've got to convince the people that corruption is bad. That the populace is a good portion of why corruption exists because they've accepted corruption as a natural part of their social dynamic. Am I wrong to make that assessment?
Well, as somebody who has a familiar background like I do, you could say that. But then again, you're missing the nuance of a lot of these people being scared into submission, but not agreeing with what's going on with the corruption and the government as a whole. They're too afraid to stand up against their government because they don't know how far the corruption goes. They may have suspicions, but if they speak out, they will either disappear or their family members will start disappearing. And in the Latino communities, family is everything.
Well,
So it's you
yeah.
open your mouth and say something against the government, then your cousin disappears or your sister disappears, or the next thing you know, you don't know where your mother is anymore, and then you get visited saying that your mother's been executed, and you've been given a picture of her execution because you said something against the corruption. So to me, it's not necessarily the fact that they agree or they're used to it, so they let it happen. I think they're scared into submission and they don't think that they have the ability to fight back.
Well, isn't there also the aspect of the fact that you said that they're very family oriented, and I understand that that group coming from my mom's side, her family,
Yeah.
which is all Portuguese. Um, uh, the the people who are corrupt can include your own family members.
Yeah, you can because we had my grand aunt on my mom's side was married to a member of the Communist Party. However, she wasn't communist. Now, I'm going to explain to people in the chat. Let's see if they understand what I'm saying when I say this. When he would leave the house to go and do his Communist Party things was the only part of the day that she could bring out all of the statues of the Catholic saints for the faith that she followed and put them in their accoutrements and do everything that she needed to do before she had to put them away again. Otherwise, she would never be seen again if he caught her practicing any kind of religion. Now, why she married him, my grandfather would say, you can't choose who you're going to fall in love with, it just happens. But to live in that kind of fear is unfathomable for me because I've never been in that position.
Well, yeah, it
I
is.
mean, she explained
I
it
will
to
admit
me.
that. I will admit that. That neither one of us have lived in that kind of an environment per se ourselves to understand that kind of commitment. It is a commitment, right, overall. And
Hmm.
I do get certain things right because people think that love is an emotion, which is not accurate. It's far beyond that. Okay, and you have to understand that love is not a temporary emotion. How you feel about a situation. It's also a commitment. It's also a duty. It's also there's
Hmm.
all everything that's if you truly love something, right? You're willing to
Hmm.
sacrifice. Okay, that's
Hmm.
really the truest definition of love. If you're willing to sacrifice something, you love something, right?
Hmm.
But that all gets wrapped up in. I'm not denying that emotion exists. Okay, I'm just saying that it can't be something that's fleeting because how you feel about things, as you well know, changes from moment to moment.
Hmm.
Okay, that's reality.
Yep.
So it's just the thing that I'm trying to point out is this: further down, if you go further south to Mexico, you run into a little nation called El Salvador.
Yep.
And did you see what just happened in El Salvador?
I haven't really been keeping up with current events. What's been going on in El Salvador?
Well, you knew about the guy who basically went ballistic and it became the president, and then said, "Okay, I'm ending MS-13 and all the gangs. I'm going to arrest all these people and throw them in prison."
Mm-hmm. I heard about that.
Well, he was so effective at it, right, that in the next election, which just happened, for which the El Salvadoran Constitution bans him from because he was only authorized a 6-year term. He ignored the Constitution, got reelected with like 70 to 80% of the vote
Hmm.
because the people start, they feel safer now.
Right.
But he just put aside the Constitution,
Yep. Scary.
and the people all cheered for it. And so, okay, what is your defining characteristics for governance then? Power?
I mean, it's astonishing, but I mean, it's like I can see how it happened. I can see how it happened because, like you said, he pretty much eradicated MS-13. So they took away the main threat that everybody was afraid of in the country. So, why wouldn't they want him to stay in office? However, like you said, there's this thing called the Constitution that limits his term, so he wasn't supposed to stay there. So my question would be, at what point Do the people say it's okay to override the Constitution and keep somebody in office that they want in office?
Well,
Because to me, that sets up a very frightening precedent. Because if that can happen in El Salvador, that can happen here with the ignorant people that think the presidential election is a fucking popularity vote instead of, a vote on the issues and actually improving what's going on in our country.
the yeah, well, we can talk about the U.S. electric and the dumbass shit going on down there. I mean, you just had in the U.S. Of course the release of the special counsel, all right, report on good old Joey Boy's, what do you call it, classified documents case,
Yeah.
where they said, well, we would charge him, but he's mentally inept.
Yeah, he's mentally inept to go on trial, but he's not mentally inept to have, access to the fucking nuclear codes or make decisions for an entire fucking country. That's that's another ridiculous
what,
posturing. Of
what,
course, when you see the alternative, as my mother would say, if you were to get Biden out of office, as my mother would say, you'd be stuck with a hyena.
okay, but all right.
Because my mom, as you can tell, my mom does not like Kamala. I'm not too fond of her either.
Well, okay, but now from a governance perspective, strictly governance perspective, right?
Hmm.
Why would Kamala, or whatever you want to call her? Yeah, I'm not trying to butcher her name intentionally. I don't mind butchering her name intentionally, but it actually wasn't intentional, as you well know, and constantly tease me about my inability to pronounce people's names.
Yeah. Well, from what I learned, because I used to call her Kamala, and apparently the way you pronounce her name is like Pamela, but with a K.
Oh, okay, Kamala. That almost
Yeah.
sounds. That's too, to me. That's too close to Camelot.
Yeah, I know.
Right, just to put it out there. But what is it from a governor's perspective, right? What should she do worse than Joe Biden did?
It's just, to me, she never really, except being a prosecutor, and again in a system that wasn't in a system that doesn't exactly work the way it should 100% of the time, and doing certain favors to get herself in prominently political positions, which is why I call her heels up Harris. Uh, uh, I really, she hasn't shown me in any video clip I have seen her speaking that she's any kind of competent to run the country either, which makes it really scary because they got two idiots, you know, in office, the main dude and the backup, and neither one of them are, to me, should be in there.
Well, I would agree that neither one of them are competent per se, but I will say this: I don't think that Kamala, all right, is as corrupt as Joe is. Okay.
She's just stupid.
Oh, she is not a Mensa candidate for sure. Okay, no one's going to
Nope.
confuse her for that. Okay, and she is an opportunist. Okay, she
Yeah,
with
hold on just a sec. Matt, you know what she reminds me of when she talks? She reminds me of that kindergarten teacher that stands at the front of the class that uses her hands to help, lower the volume of the room and keep explaining and she's always breaking shit down into hooked on phonics for the stupid people in the back. That's what she reminds me of
uh, she's stealing
because
Joey's.
she keeps explaining shit like we're idiots.
She's stealing Joe's meds. um, my point about the corruption though is as bad as she is. Okay, as bad as she would be, she's not as corrupt, right? And I'm not saying she's not corrupt herself, because to an extent she is corrupt. I think that that's that's a given for anybody that has no principles, all right?
Yeah.
And let's be perfectly frank, most that applies to most politicians. Okay, okay. So
Yep.
there's they have no principles upon which you can rely upon, and her principle, her primary goal is power. Right. The problem that I have with Kamala is if you gave her all the power, she has no concept, all right, of what to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
So which leaves her open up to being a puppet on a string, just like Biden is.
well, she would go one way, then another way, then another way. We'd be all over the freaking place, which is what we are right now.
Hmm.
True, but
Yeah.
all right. I mean that is a problem. But the, I personally think we'd be better off as a nation, all right, if we got rid of Joe, all right. But then
I mean,
again,
we need somebody, and this is going to be a radical idea, but I've been thinking about this for a while. In order to truly correct course in this country, from the policies to the money that we keep spending that we don't have, we need to go for at least a term or two full isolationist and worry about ourselves to fix our problems. Because we're sitting here trying to fix the ills of the world when our own government and our own country is falling the fuck apart. And you can't help other people when you have your own problem.
well,
Not this bad of a problem that we're having,
I
you know? And it's
agree with
like,
that stance. All right, isolationism, a return to an isolationist mentality, is something that definitely has to take place to an extent. All right,
mm,
there is a problem that I have, and you know this as well as many other people. We as Americans don't want to be the leaders of the world. Okay,
no.
we don't care about you. Okay, I want the rest of the world to understand this. We don't give a shit about you. We never did. All right? You're not friends of ours. We understand that. Okay? We care about certain groups, right? That are friendly with the United States.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay? But overall, if you want to go down a socialist, utopian path, go for it. Don't involve us. Don't keep dragging us in. Now, I realize that after World War II, we were the only counterbalance, right, to the alternative, right, which was Soviets,
Hmm.
the Soviet style, and the
Yeah.
Soviets taking everything over. Okay, that's all true. But you know what? If we would have pulled out and said, you know what, we're going to return to our isolationist mentality, the Soviets would have taken over Europe. Totally agree. Okay,
Hmm.
and then they would have collapsed like they did, especially far quicker because internally the people would have been freaking going nuts.
Mm.
Okay? You can't sustain that for long periods of time. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that we were funding and doing all these things, all right, to prop Europe up, I honestly think that the Soviet Union would have collapsed far quicker.
Probably.
Okay? But that's just, that's just my point of view. But the problem that I
Yeah.
have
I
right
mean,
now,
like, to me, I'm
go ahead.
I'm just looking at all this money that we're spending everywhere, and I mean, yeah, Israel is has always been an ally of ours. I get that, okay, and all this money that we want to keep shoveling over to Ukraine, it's like, where are we getting this money from? We don't have this. This country is in debt.
Yes.
If any one of us, if all of us in the United States was spending money like our government spent money, we would all be in fucking jail for check fraud. I
Which
mean,
is
it's but they continue to write checks on money that they don't have, and it's like, can you people? And I know that this is the Democrats' problem. They spend money, whether they have it or not. They spend it, and then those of us that are level-headed, they're like, well, we're just going to ignore those people that are angry because we keep spending money because we need to spend the money. Why?
well, they're spending
Why?
money.
I you
That
know
let's be honest, the vast majority of that money. I shouldn't say the vast majority. That money is being spent for political purposes that ends up back in their coffers to a large extent. Okay, a
Yeah.
lot of
I
this
mean,
money gets
mhm.
returned right back to them through some kind of backdoor deals, all right, that end up right back into their pockets, which is why you're constantly seeing these Democrats right now in a lot of trouble, all right, because they are having issues with corruption being identified directly to them right now, all right, on these more
Yeah.
local levels, right? Like
Yep.
the mayor that there's several mayors in Illinois that are having issues. Obviously, you're having the issues now where good old Mayor Adams is having a major problem that's just starting, by the way, with their housing department. Did you read about that? Where 70
Mm-mm.
people in their housing group were charged with taking bribes. 70 in New York City.
Wow.
Okay, and they said this is just the start of the corruption problem within the city government of New York City. Okay, that to me is not a surprise.
No, it's not.
All right, because for the
It's
longest time, these guys have been, if you notice, they've been doing these things. You got the problem with Harris, not Harris, Willis, Fannie Willis, down in
mhm.
Georgia, right? She's not in trouble per se over Trump per se, except for the fact that she was using the government funds, right, to take on trips with her lover boy, who she put on the payroll. Okay, you
Mhm.
end up with these people. They start living. It's the prosecutor in in Baltimore. Remember the prosecutor in Baltimore that went nuts over the death of Gray, the guy who
Mhm.
supposedly was. For those who don't know, Gray was a criminal who had been picked up during for lack of a better term, a freaking massive roundup because they were just grabbing people, certain people, and throwing them in a paddy wagon, right? And he died. Okay, and he died, and there was bruises, and they tried to claim that the police beat the guy to death. There's no evidence that he was beaten to death. In fact, the evidence shows that while he was in the paddy wagon, he basically slammed himself into the vehicle at several points, right, to try and get bruises on him that he could then, you know, say that this was police, police brutality and so forth, so he could try to then sue the police and get money.
Yeah.
Well, the prosecutor in that case charged five of the police officers, right? Um, I think all of them, if I'm not mistaken, all of them were black though, claiming racism,
Right.
right? And of course, in the trial, they were all found not guilty. But now she's in jail for defrauding the government for COVID money, right?
Good. Yeah.
All right, so
And it's never ending. It's never ending. This is why I tell people I'm not conservative. I'm not libertarian. I'm not Democrat. I'm me. I'm in the middle watching all these motherfuckers screw up.
yeah, you're the problem. You freaking moderates. Anyway, no, but in order to fix this, right, in order to actually fix the country, in my opinion, okay, I agree with your stance on isolation because we do need to go back to a more isolationist point of view where we're saying, okay, you do what you want. We're going to be the United States, and if you don't like it, too bad. All right, you know. And what I mean by that is we're not going to sail our ships all around here trying to protect you. Protect yourselves, you stupid sons of bitches. Right? But if you attack an American, we're going to park an aircraft carrier off your coast. It's simple rules. Back to the simple rules. Okay. Don't attack the
Mhm.
Americans. Everything's fine. You want to attack anybody else's ships? Go for it. We're just going to stand by. Okay. You attack an American ship, though, we're not going to respond with. We shouldn't be responding with, "Oh, look, we sent a cruise missile to blow up a pill factory." Okay.
Yeah.
We should be sending over B-52s for. Let us know when you're not going to do this anymore. Okay.
Yep.
I have a very simple rule. All right. It comes down to peace through superior firepower. I don't believe in limiting ourselves. All right, just because you're a pissant country. Okay, I've held
Right.
this view for a long time. But aside from that, to going back to the United States, the biggest problem we have in government right now is the government's too freaking large.
Yeah.
There's only one way to fix that now at this point, and that is the Convention of States and a direct reduction of the federal government. An
Yep.
absolute reduction coming back to you can't do this, you can't do this. This department is now gone. This department can only have this many people, et cetera, and have it written out. All right, saying this is what we're going to start with again before we put everything else back together again. And you're not
Yeah.
going to get that unless you have a convention of states.
Yeah.
Now, are we close to having a convention of states? Probably not. Right? Something worse is going to happen.
No.
And I'll be honest with you, the way the world is going right now, I expect things to get worse before they get better. Let's be
Yeah.
perfect. Let's be
Unfortunately,
perfectly.
me too.
Let's be perfectly frank. We just watched Biden come out and go after vociferously and very, let's be honest, basically grumpy old man time. That's my role, but but he went after that reporter. How dare you ask me that question about my age? What? That's your opinion. Where'd you get your opinion? That's just your opinion. You're just making this stuff up, dude. When your own people try to bring you
I
back and
mean,
you
it's,
come
it's
back
not
out
only that.
again,
It's
go ahead.
yeah. It's to me. It's not only that. It's him getting pissed off because people are accusing him of not remembering when his son died, and or the funeral or anything like that. And then the clip that I saw of him on X was him not even being able to finish the name of the parish that the rosary came from.
Right.
I mean, these are things that, a normal person would not forget. I mean, it's what astounds me about the country nowadays, and I'm not talking about the media, I'm not talking about people in political positions. I mean, your regular lay person. What astounds me about these lay people that have been completely fucking taken to the cleaners or just been duped is how do you not look at all this video evidence of him speaking, him mumbling, him stuttering, him not remembering things, him wandering around aimlessly on stages, and, not walking with any kind of confidence, and not say that there's something wrong with him. He's sick. He's exhibiting all a lot of the traits of somebody with advanced dementia, and here he is leading our country. This, whether I agree with what he's doing or not, and I don't, this is elderly abuse, and this needs to stop. And somebody needs to sit there and tell him, we don't care if you want to run in 2024 for the presidency again. You're not fit to.
Okay. Well, let me
We need to find somebody else.
get your tinfoil hat. Right. Put it on because we're going to talk
Mhm.
conspiracy theories that I've been hearing.
Oh no, not those.
All right, from all sorts of people. All right. There are a number of conspiracy theories where people are claiming that what the plan is. This is their terms. All right. It's not my term. I want you to understand.
Okay.
I don't buy these things. Okay. Mainly because the reality is Americans don't think that way. We tend not to. We're not a plotting kind of people. Okay.
Yeah.
We are a take direct action kind of people. Forward looking. We don't plot. How do I get this going back in this? This is why all the our movies are so have all these kind of dramas because we have no. It's like living vicariously in things that we don't do. Okay, but so
Yeah.
the big plot is they're going to let Biden continue the way it is right now until the Democrat convention, and then they're going to have him say, come at the convention, he's going to come out and say, well, I can't be president. You're going to have to choose somebody else.
Hmm.
Now, this then causes other people to go, well, why don't they just declare? I mean, let's be honest. If there was a case for the 25th Amendment to be applied, it's now.
Yes,
Okay,
I agree.
so the question now becomes, well, why isn't it applied? Okay, to continue with the
Yeah,
conspiracy
people.
theory now.
Yep, I know.
They don't want to apply it because they don't want to give the quote unquote Republicans a win. Okay, that would make the
Yeah.
Republicans. It would increase the chances of the Republicans winning. So they have to prevent that from happening until he decides not to run again. Okay, so when somebody said that to me, my comment back to them was, well, then why don't the Republicans start the process of the 25th Amendment, right?
Yeah.
And the conspiracy goes, well, the Republicans don't want to do it because they want to force the Democrats to admit that they were wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
So everyone just keeps waffling in the middle of this. All right.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the rest of the world sees a directionless US, and how then do they react to this? You have countries like, let's be honest, Venezuela, which is getting ready to attack Guyana, and I honestly think that they will. Okay, um, because they don't see any. They see the United States not acting as a leader on the world stage. It's leaderless.
Yeah, we
Okay,
we have a weak leader. We have a very weak leader in office right now, and that causes a whole lot of problems for the rest of the world because a weak leader means that, we can't really we're making all the fucking wrong decisions, really. I mean, let's be real here. There isn't a single decision that he has made that's actually done any good for the country
well,
because when he said they were going to pass a bill to fight inflation, I'm like, you can't throw money at an inflation problem.
yeah. I saw an
How is
ad.
spending more money going to lower inflation? I'm
I,
like, this is
I saw an ad recently, basically attacking. It was an attack ad against Trump because he said that we need to reduce the minimum wage, right? And the person was basically saying, how can that's not going to fight inflation. You need a higher minimum wage for people to fight inflation. And I'm like, you're you're serious about this ad?
yeah.
You're seriously thinking that this ad has any? I'm like, you
It's like they
realize
they
that it will rising wages rises inflation.
they don't. It's like they gloss over that part of what happens in the economy whenever the minimum wage has been raised. And I mean, throughout history, when they've raised the minimum wage, prices have gone up. Why? Because part of a business's overhead is what? Labor.
Yes.
The cost of labor. So if the cost of labor goes up because you're paying them more in minimum wage wise, then everything that company makes is going to go up to cover the cost. Because ain't none of these big wigs going to say, "Well, I'm not going to give up, my huge overinflated bonus for the year just to give these people raises so we can keep costs down."
Speaking of which, my grocery bill makes me cry. Yeah, no,
Right?
I
Yeah,
hear you.
right?
I mean, from my perspective, in the last 10 years, groceries have tripled. The cost of groceries
Look, I
has
look at a
tripled from
I
what
can
it
look
was.
at a dozen eggs and wonder if they're being trained as a vaudeville act. I mean, seriously, when you've got $4 or $5 for a damn, dozen eggs, the first when the inflation was at its highest. I was at the store. There's a store here in Minnesota called Hy-Vee. I was there for mom because she wasn't feeling good enough, so I had to, and I called her. And I said, "You want a dozen you want 18 eggs, right?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, the 18 eggs is $9. I think they're teaching them how to sing and dance in unison." And somebody next to me started laughing. And mom's like, "Yeah, we ain't paying $9 for eggs." I said, "Okay, we'll skip the eggs. We'll go, see if we can find it." Because to me, it's meat has always been expensive, but now it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah,
I've always marked inflation by how much does a dozen eggs cost. Because if I'm paying $4 for 12 eggs, them eggs better entertain me, whether through stand-up comedy, acting in a movie for about 90 minutes before I eat them, or they should prep themselves because that's fucking ridiculous. They're eggs.
That's true. All right. Yeah,
Hmm.
jar of mayonnaise for $6. Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right.
Yeah.
The cost of food is absolutely outrageous right now. All right.
Yeah.
And you're not going to raising the minimum wage isn't going to fix that. Okay.
Nope.
Um, raising taxes on land isn't going to fix that.
Nope.
It's going to exacerbate it, right? So all these ideas, the reality is we can't afford to keep playing these stupid ass games with people. And what people have to understand is that a lot of this has to do with the politicians getting money. Okay, Biden didn't become a multimillionaire. All right, now Biden has served his entire life in, for all intents and purposes, his entire life has been as a quote unquote public servant. All right, in in public office. Well, then how
Yeah.
the hell is he worth over? He really is close to $1 billion.
All the deals that he's been making throughout his life.
Well,
I
basically,
mean, we know. I'm a firm proponent of if they're in Congress, they need to wear a jacket for all the lobbyists who have them in their pocket. That way we know who they're sponsored by. Just like, like a racing jacket.
you want to patch on?
Mhm. Like a racing jacket with all the lobbyists that have been giving them money that they're in the back pockets of. I want a sponsor jacket that they have to
Well,
wear
the big
with all
sponsor,
the patches
the
on it.
big sponsor jacket, a lot of them will be running around. Those are things that say things like the NEA, the SEIU. All right. Why am I pointing out these two? Because they're government unions.
Yeah.
This is government money that goes directly back to them. In other words, they're stealing your treasury. All right. It's not even.
Yep.
They're not even using. They're not even using. They're using money straight from you in taxes to do this, folks. I want you to understand this.
Mhm.
This is why I complain about people when people talk about, oh, we need better teachers. No, we don't. Well, we do, but we don't. Okay. The
What
problem
what we
is,
what we do need to do in regards to teachers and how they're being paid is first of all we need to literally objectively obsess assess these teachers and figure out which ones need to be teaching and which ones need to go first. I mean, period. And the first thing is you need to get rid of the teachers union because the teachers union protects the teacher, whether the teacher is one of the best teachers anybody has ever seen in the annals of educational history or the worst fucking person to ever step into a classroom to teach children. All of them are protected the same way.
yeah, well, there is that aspect, but the other problem with the teachers union is they're not interested. Teachers unions are not interested in teaching.
Mm-mm,
Period.
mm-mm.
Okay, their goals have nothing to do with your students. So the problem with that, of course, is once again you're talking something at a federal level that should not be done at a federal level. Okay,
Exactly.
it's something that should be done completely at a local level. So the entire NEA, as far as I'm concerned, the car and the entire Department of Education in the United States needs to go bye bye.
Yeah.
Okay, it shouldn't be run. It shouldn't be run as a federal agency. Okay, this is something that I don't think a lot of people understand. The states used to, way back in the day, you didn't have departments that were part of the federal government run things. What you had were different states would put together different organizations, all right, that they would all agree with. This is why, and some of those things still work. This is why when they talk about an accredited university and everything,
Mm-hmm.
they're not accredited by a federal government body. Okay, it's actually a private body put together by the states and other education commissions that created that body. You don't need federal government oversight of this. Does that make sense? It can be
Yeah.
done in a private level or in a different level. It doesn't need to be done this way. And that's where I think a lot of this has to go back to. Okay, well then, why are we spending money in the NEA, right, or the education department? As far as I'm concerned, you need to get rid of it. Okay. You also need to get rid of federal funding. There shouldn't be any federal funding for education. It can be done at the local levels. There's nothing to
Yeah.
prevent that, and they really need all that needs to be rehashed. But once again, the only way to reduce the size of the federal government, okay, at this point in time, you're not going to be able to do it through Congress. That's why I say a convention of states. You know, that's why
Yeah.
I would go back and start going. Okay, we're going to go through a several step process. Well, if I was going to make an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that I could just write in permanently,
Mm-hmm.
it would be that a convention of states is automatically something that's initiated every 50 years. All
Yeah,
right.
I would, yeah, I agree with you on that one. And I would also, if I could write in one, it would be, one bill, one issue.
Yes.
Because it's like, it would stop this, oh my God, don't vote for so and so because he vetoed this bill. Well, why did he veto the bill? And then you get crickets. It's like, if you read the bill, you realize there's a reason other than the fact, like, what was it? 2 election cycles ago, and it stuck in my head because of all these idiots and the amount of times I had to look up the bill. It's like, don't vote for so and so, the Republican, because he voted against the veterans bill because he doesn't care about veterans. Why didn't he vote for the bill? Oh, well, let's see. How many different taxes did they want to tack onto the fucking bill?
Right.
What other pork did they put in the bill?
Right.
Because it's not just a bill about veterans and improving the lives and the medical, services for veterans. There's all this other shit in it too.
Well, yeah, you just recently saw an example of that with the Senate bill that just came out, which I have a problem with for
Mhm.
other reasons. But the Senate bill that just came out that said we're going to set up the immigration enforcement bill where we're giving
Yeah.
20 billion to immigration enforcement. I'm not going to talk about that at the moment. The 20 billion for there, 60 billion to the Ukraine and Israel, all right, and another 20 billion or 10
Yeah.
billion to the Gaza Strip.
He keeps. It's like,
And
okay,
it's
who's the fuck side are you on? Because you're giving money to Israel and Gaza. Like, who's the fuck? Pick a side.
yeah. Which is one of the reasons why
My God.
which is one of the reasons why if I had my druthers, we would no longer be in the UN nor in NATO. I mean, that's just
Yeah. I mean, it makes. We don't need to be in either one because every time something happens, they look at us like we're the world police, and we're not.
well,
We're
they
just
come
us.
running to Papa America saying, "Fix this for us, fix this for us," and then America fixes it the way they think is best. Whoever's in charge at that point, right? And no
Yeah.
matter who it is, you're going to get bitched at again. This is why I've said this to people a long time ago when they talk about America. Well, America does this in America. It isn't America. What did you want to do? Why didn't you fix it? Where were you?
Yeah.
You're
Well, it's
going to
like the
bitch and
whole.
complain
It's
about
like
all the
every.
things we do. Well, then what the hell were you doing?
It's like, shifting it back over here. It's like all these people bitching about, blaming Trump about the abortion law being rescinded and now it's going to the states. Well, it's caused a mess because state to state now they're making their own laws. That's one thing. But the one thing they keep overlooking is Congress has had 51 fucking years to have some kind of legislation about abortion and they never did it.
Right.
And it wasn't and the other thing they overlook is the Supreme Court is the main interpreter of the law that is the Constitution of the United States of America. They are not supposed to be writing the laws. That's what Congress is supposed to do. And
Right.
by them doing what they did about Roe versus Wade, they legislated from the bench, which was an overstep of their power.
Oh, I agree. I agree. But see, you said that
They they corrected a mistake. Now there's a mess because Congress,
it
after 51 years, still didn't come up with anything that could work.
is it really a mess?
Well, I mean, to me, it's okay. In my opinion, and Mom and I agree on this. It's if I were to write an abortion bill, a universal abortion bill, and put it through Congress
Oh.
for consideration and a vote, I would say a woman has 12 weeks to discover that she's pregnant and to find out what she wants to do about the pregnancy. 12 weeks. After 12 weeks, the only exceptions would be if it is determined that carrying the baby to term would be detrimental for the mother's health, in other words, she would die in the course of continuing to carry this baby. If the baby would not survive past 12 weeks because of a defect, a rare disease, or what have you, and in cases of rape and incest. To me, that is a perfectly reasonable law to have on the books for abortion. Because 12 weeks is long enough for a woman to find out that she skipped a period, that she's pregnant, and what she wants to do with the baby.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to play a
Okay?
little devil's
And then
advocate
in
here.
that, okay,
Okay. That's that's fine. But what about the people who say that you should be able to do that after 4 weeks? You should be know if you skipped a period.
to me it's anybody that says 6 weeks or less is not giving a woman enough time to realize that they are
Okay.
late because they're pregnant. Because
Okay.
it took me 6 weeks to realize that I was late in my period to find out that I was pregnant with my son.
And I understand that.
I would
Right.
have been screwed if that law would have been in place. So to me, that's why I say 12 weeks is absolutely reasonable. And to add to that bill, stipulations that if the man, the father to be, wants the baby and the mother doesn't want anything to do with the baby, then upon birth, the mother signs any and all rights off to give it the baby to the one who wants it. And the one
Okay.
who wants it, the father to be, cannot pursue the person who gave up her rights for any kind of child support because he wants the baby and she didn't want the baby to begin with. And vice versa if the woman wants it and the guy didn't. If he got tricked into it or he didn't know and he didn't want a kid. You know what? To me, once you sign your rights away, then in the law, it should include she can't or he can't go after the other party for child support. You wanted the kid, they didn't.
Okay. Okay. That's once again, but the biggest problem that I have with that, with all of that, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because to a point, you got to understand there's a point is the establishment of when does human life begin. Okay, so
Because the heartbeat bills that you were talking about was between 4 and 6 weeks. Once you hear a heartbeat, it's a viable fetus. And it's
well,
like, not really.
no. The thing is when does human life begin and deserve to be protected by the state, right?
Hmm.
Under those laws. Okay, regardless of how you establish that, that establishment is something that never should have been done by the courts to begin with. Okay.
I agree.
Um, the other aspect of this is okay when you say can a person terminate or not terminate, right? Once again, we do that as a society, folks. If you even if you take away if you look outside of abortion, what do you think the death penalty is?
Hmm.
Right? And regardless of whether or not you want to look at the death penalty, if you say, okay, well, we're just going to do life imprisonment forever, you're still doing the same thing. You're basically taking away a person's life and saying, okay, here's what you are. You're now a slave of the state for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a society, we do make these societal decisions. Okay.
Hmm.
And I think that that's where we should have left this as. So personally, when you say you think of it as chaos that's happening, I don't see it as chaos. I see it as let people in these local arenas, specifically the states, make their own determinations what's best for the societies in their areas.
Well, I
And
mean, I
and
can
and
see
so
that to a point.
so is somebody coming back saying, well, I don't want to live in that society. Well, there's one right across the border, right over there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's some of these abortion laws, and this is why I say it's chaos. Some of these abortion laws in some of these states even govern whether or not these women in these positions can go to other states that allow abortions and get an abortion.
Right.
They would be facing murder upon return back to their home state, which I don't agree with. Like
Um.
there was that one case in Texas where it was determined that the lady's baby wasn't going to make it to term. So they decided that abortion was best and Texas wouldn't let her get an abortion because it was a
That is
rare
not
disease.
that is not a that is a claim that was never that's hasn't been verified actually. And I'm not saying that
Mm.
that these things can't take place because obviously they can't. But there is a in the cases like this, in my opinion, this is now understand this is my little humble opinion, right? This is
Hmm.
something that should have been adjudicated within the state laws, all right, not on a blanket statement, but on a case by case basis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Hmm.
that's where I think the laws where the law has a problem with is that these kind of things should never have been adjudicated on a broad scale. They always should have been adjudicated on an individual by individual basis. And taking away the
Yeah.
individual to individual basis is where we've made a mistake with this. All right. You talk about
Yeah.
cases of abortion in case of rape and incest. Okay, I agree. All right, that could have been done, and it still could be done, right, on an individual case by case
Hmm.
basis. All right. Now the
Hmm.
problem is that people don't want that though. Let's be perfectly frank. The vast majority of the people that support these rules aren't doing it because of the outlying this individual case or that individual case. They're looking at it as I don't want to be held accountable.
Well, to me, it's not. It's not only not wanting to be held accountable. It's they're legislating according to their religious beliefs instead of
Well, no, no,
the
there's
problem that's at hand when it's regarding abortion. Because let's face it, okay, a lot. I'm not because I don't like speaking in generalities. There
mhm.
are many Republicans out there that want all abortions banned
Oh,
because
there are
they
plenty of people
consider,
do. Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't call them Republicans, but I would say that there are
well,
conservatives.
conservatives,
Yeah.
like Christian conservatives. Let's say Christian conservatives,
Hmm.
okay? For lack of a better word, Christian or Catholic conservatives, because both of them are conservatives, but there's a delineation in between Catholicism and being a Christian. But it's like to me, if you're going to pass a law like this having to do with abortion, you need to, and maybe it's the way my brain works, but you need to set any and all religious beliefs aside. Look at the medical science that's present and make the law from the medical science that's there. Does this mean you're going to have to take accountability if something goes wrong? Yes. Do a lot of people like taking accountability? No.
No,
I
but
mean,
the
it's
let's be honest.
when I had my miscarriage many years ago, and they gave me the piece of paper, diagnosing what happened. They didn't have miscarriage on the paper. They put spontaneous abortion. Now, part of my brain went, "What the fuck?" and the other part of my brain went, "Oh yeah, because I got up this morning and decided that I was going to have a
Yeah,
miscarriage spontaneously."
because the term abortion has changed. Okay,
Yeah,
and that's that's why you had that issue, right? Because what abortion
yeah,
was is not on demand abortion. Abortion was the baby was aborted. All right, had nothing to do. It did not have any connotation of choice or no choice.
yeah,
Okay, of an individual
but-
back
yeah,
when that was written. So that's why it was put that way. Okay, um,
yeah,
it had a different legal context because the term abortion hadn't changed. Okay, I'm not I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to get people to understand who are listening the fuller context of this. The problem, like I said though, is you look at it and you went straight to the conservative view of things. Okay, I
yeah,
look at this and go exactly the opposite. Because when I talk about the people not wanting accountability, I'm talking about the people who are pro-choice, especially men. I don't want to. I want to be able to quote unquote sow my wild oats without ever somebody be coming back saying that child is mine.
yeah.
All right, and
Oh yeah,
and let's
yeah.
be
There's
perfectly
lots of
frank.
pro-choice people that think that way.
All right, so the
Yeah,
problem still, but when you come down to the definition of what is good for society or what's basis for society, Americans were always supposed to have multiple social dynamics and multiple societies within the overall arcing part of the United States. Each state was
hmm,
supposed to be a society unto themselves, not a closed society, all right, but a different society unto themselves with different rules. So if
yeah,
in New York they want to basically say we we consider human life to begin after you're 1 year old and you've had your first birthday. Let them. Okay, that's the New York society. They can argue that amongst themselves. Okay, it shouldn't have had necessarily an effect on people that were living in Louisiana, for example. Okay,
Yeah, and I
and
understand
that's
that.
why when you said that there's chaos in this, I don't see it as chaos. I just think it as just let things play out the way they were always supposed to play out. I don't think of it as chaos in any way, shape, or form. I think the chaos started when you end up with the people who are trying to apply this across the nation, saying this is what our determination is. Now, if you want to argue
Mm.
within your own groups, saying okay, within the state, you're going to have a better chance of arguing within the state of these other of these rules, right? Um,
Mm.
and that's why I mean, you looked at it and said chaos, and I'm looking at it as what's chaotic about it. It's just what that
Well,
state
it's
does, and
the reason
this,
I say it,
yeah.
and maybe I use the wrong term, and I'll
No.
concede
You
that I
used it.
possibly use the wrong term, but
I think the reason you use that term is because we've gotten into, and I'm the same way in a lot of ways. I'm not trying to point you out and say that you're different than I am. Well, you are different than I am, but that's not the point. The you were in this specific instances, all right. We've gotten so used to looking at everything on a national basis. A fix has to be national, right? A fix, a
Mm,
determination has to be national. We've gotten so used to that, all right, because
yeah,
of these broad terms that people talk about, all right, that they're looking for fixes of things that there are no fixes nationally that are ever going to work. Okay,
yeah.
one of the big terms that drives me crazy, police brutality. Okay, well, police brutality is a problem across the country. Is it? Is police?
It's see that is police brutality a problem? Yes. Is it across the country? If all you ever believe is what the media is feeding you, then yes, it's across the country.
Well,
See
exactly.
that to me is more of a critical thinking issue because too many people are believing what they're fed in the media because if the only stories in the media are about corrupt cops or cops, that kill perpetrators for quote unquote no reason, then yes, we have a police brutality problem. And we have a racial police brutality problem because the media is only presenting black people being killed by white cops because let's face it, whenever it's a black cop shooting a black dude, you don't hear about it. It's just white cop, black perpetrator.
Later, James. Yeah, no, exactly.
But if you dig deeper on a state by state basis, you'll realize that there really is, even though you have certain cases, police brutality cases, it's not the epidemic they want you to believe that it is if you're going state by state and case by case. Because in a lot of these cases, these people fucking deserve what they got, in my opinion, because if you're gonna try and run a cop over with your car, then that cop is gonna try and kill your ass, and I have no problems with that. I mean,
uh,
hypothetically speaking.
well, I think that one of the problems that I have with when people talk about policing in general is the fact that they don't understand the purpose of police. The purpose of police is not to be your friend. It's not. It's not to arrest the bad guy. The primary purpose of police, regardless of where the police are, and what I mean by that is in the world.
Yeah,
Okay, the primary purpose of
yeah,
police, all right, is establishment of order. Okay, it's
hmm,
insurance of societal order. Once you understand that that's their primary concern, then you start to understand where the fights are. Okay, if you come back with the idea that the police's primary concern is to protect you, and then you get all bent out of shape because the police didn't protect you in situation A, B, C, and D, okay, then all you do is you're muddying the water. All right, to the point where
yeah,
you forget what police, the primary purpose police have to serve in societal roles. All right, and they can no longer serve that purpose anymore. Right, when you
yeah,
muddy it down to that point, they become less and less and less effective. Okay, that's my problem with these people when they talk about what happened with Rodney King. People look at Rodney
Yeah.
King, and I watched the Rodney King thing, and people come back going, "Oh, the poor guy got beaten and everything else." And I'm looking at it like the guy didn't listen to the police.
Yeah.
Right? Several
Well, it's
times the
like we've got
police,
this
the
one
well,
this one story that's on the news recently
mhm.
about, the family trying to get these people to investigate the fact that this police officer shot their son. Well, in the course of him being pulled over, motherfucker decided he was going to leave and he ran over a cop's fucking foot. At that point, that's an assault with a deadly fucking weapon.
Well, yeah, I understand that, and these tragedies happen. They happen all the time,
Mhm.
by the way. Okay,
Yep.
there was a case
Mhm.
here out about 3, maybe 4 years ago, right here in Mesa, Arizona, right, where there's a banging at this guy's door. He came out with a gun. Now he wasn't pointing at the police, but he came out initially, and the way the cops were situated, it looked as if this guy was bringing the gun up, right, when the guy was just walking and he had it, and they gunned him down. Now you didn't hear about it in the national news because the guy was white, all right, but it did happen. Now, why did he come to the door with a gun? Because he had been accosted before and robbed before by people banging on the door.
Yep.
Okay, so you start to understand tragedies can happen, all right, and that my point here is this guy would be alive if he had come to the door and said, "Who is it? It's the police," and then looked out to make sure it was the police and put the gun down.
Yeah.
He had the complete capability of not dying in that situation. Now you could say, "Well, but the police, they were too gun happy and everything else." You're coming to a disturbance where you've been told that there's, you know, things out there, and all of a sudden one of the other cops sees a guy with a gun. What do you think they're going to do? Wait for you to
Yep.
shoot first? They're not there for your
Right.
public safety, folks. This is
No,
what.
they had that. There was what was it in the mid '80s? I remember this because Mom and I were looking at this, going, it doesn't make any sense. They had passed a law in Miami-Dade County that the police officers could not shoot unless they were shot upon first. And so the cops went, okay, you want to play it that way, all right, and they started showing up after the perpetrators had already left
Yep.
because nobody wants to be fucking shot at.
Well,
So they
exactly.
had to rescind the law. I'm like, this is dumb. I mean, who the fuck wants to stand there and be shot at and go, okay, now we can shoot? The
Well,
fuck is this?
well, exactly. But so it's not that I think that all police shootings are good and that we can't do things to help policing and things like that. That's not the point. Okay. The point is you can't keep absolving people of individual accountability and responsibility like we have and still survive in our nation because our nation wasn't founded that way. Our nation was
True.
founded as individuals, not as societies. Right? This is what I don't
Hmm.
think a lot of people understand and once again, I'm talking nationally. State by
Yeah.
state is a little different, but the national level politics should never be involved in all this stuff. It never should have been. Okay? And didn't used to be. It wasn't until after World War II where the consolidation of federal power has gotten to the point where it's completely onerous. Now, there's been good things that
Yeah.
they've done with that political power. I don't want people to misunderstand that. All right, fixing the problems. All right, in this, let's be frank, in the South. All right, of the problems of where you had Jim Crow laws and things like that that were going on. Right, and a Jim Crow law was really an application of laws. Not the problem was the application of laws, and basically they were then held accountable. The applications of that power to fix that, okay, was something that was necessary, all right, and effective. It did a good thing, right? But just because it did a good thing in that case doesn't mean that it's good in all cases, right? For example, what we're dealing with a
Right.
situation right now where you're talking about quote unquote trans rights, right?
Hmm.
Well, if you specifically in where sports, right? That's where the
Yeah.
biggest rub is right now, correct?
Yep.
Well, if you take the side of the quote unquote trans rights community, the way that you are speaking this, okay, then why do you even need Title IX?
Eh, mm, Good point. Of course, my stance on the whole trans people and women's sports thing is the lunacy will end when all women start refusing to compete
well,
with a trans person on the other, against a trans person.
well, it'll kill women competing in sports is what it'll do. Period.
Mm-hmm.
That will be the end result.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So all these things about people saying, "Oh, we need Title IX, we need Title IX." Okay, well, if your view is you need Title IX, I would argue you're wrong. But the other problem with that is okay, when you then turn around and say, "Okay, but men and women are equal," now you've just proven the fact that Title IX doesn't exist. My disagreement with Title IX
Yeah.
is once again, this is something that's been happened nationally. There's a lot of things that happen societally in a national basis that I disagree with as well. And you got to understand that. For example, when you're talking about the NCAA specifically, all right, we'll talk about the biggest cash cow there is, right? The NCAA men's
Mm-hmm.
football. Okay,
Right.
so what what is the result of that? We no longer have amateur athletes and amateur athletics anymore. It is now a professional league. They are being paid to play football, right? Well,
Right.
why did all this happen? Well, if you take a look at it, it happened because everyone started focusing nationally, all right, on who is the best team nationally. Before it used to be you won your conference and then maybe your conference got to play another conference in a big bowl game, right?
Right.
But then money started coming into who's the best one should be getting more money, and as more money flowed into this, right, due to entertainment, okay, it came down to okay, well, we want to know nationally who's this, all right. So you went from these conferences just playing each other in bowl games to being more bowl games to people going, oh no, we need to create some kind of system, a playoff system to where the national the best team in the nation is chosen. Now what you have, right, is total focus on that away from the conferences and people just playing sports and enjoying sports for sports sake. You know, and this is
Yeah.
this is sad. This national
Yep.
this way away from the local to the national, right, has not necessarily in the sporting community been good. This is true of all sports, though. It's not just true of that, but it's true of all sports in all sports areas. All right. And where did Title IX come in? Right. Title IX came in. Let's be perfectly frank. Why did Title IX come in? Because people were bitching because they were jealous. These groups over here are making more money than these groups over here. Men's sports is
Yeah.
making more money, so therefore colleges and so forth want men's sports over women's sports, which is true. That is what happened. All right. So the women that were saying, no,
Yep.
we want money. We want the same amount of money spent on us. All right. And our sports, yeah, but the reason these guys are making money is because other groups are coming in there and giving them money from an entertainment perspective. All right. And you don't draw. Let's be honest. Nobody in the United States is going to say that from a entertainment value, watching someone curling versus watching someone play basketball is equivalent, right?
Mm,
How many people are going to go,
right.
yeah, I want to watch people with brooms and curling? Okay.
Right.
Now,
What I call shuffleboard on ice.
basically what it is, right? And I'm not denigrating curling. I'm saying from an entertainment perspective, it's much more it's much more entertaining, right? Why is baseball no longer the American sport? Let's be perfectly frank. It's no longer the American pastime, right? But why? because of television.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, people called it the Americans' pastime because Americans would go to the games. Okay, they would
Yeah.
physically go to the game during the day. They would say, you know what, when this game is being played, I'm going to not go to work today. I'm going to go to the baseball game. They were taking the day off.
Well, it's not only
Go
it
ahead.
wasn't all it's not only television. Let's be realistic. It's not only
Um,
television. It's the rising cost of the tickets and the concessions and stuff that keep a lot of people out of the stadiums nowadays because everything let's just stadium food and buying tickets to a game have been outrageous before this last inflation jump.
oh, I don't disagree with that. But my point is the reason it's no longer the America's pastime is in order to enjoy that entertainment, you could put it on television. Okay, but when you go to watch a television game, would you rather watch a competition of baseball or would you rather watch a competition of football, which has far more action, for example?
True. Yeah.
Okay,
Because I
and
didn't really like baseball anyway.
because it was, let's be honest, there's not nearly the action that you see in in football. This is why soccer has never been a big issue in America, because as an entertainment medium, let's be honest, American football is far more entertaining than soccer is. All right, now Europeans and
Yeah.
everything talk about soccer and how it's profitable over there. Wait a few years. Okay, I hate to say this, but wait a few years as other entertainment things become more popular and then come back and tell me how popular soccer is. And it's not that I don't enjoy watching soccer or even playing soccer. That's not it. It's from an entertainment value, from a monetary value of watching it on television where it's broadcast. From a broadcast value, it
Yep.
doesn't have the same value. Now, that's true up to one area, though, and that is, of course, the World Cup. And
Right.
why? Because of the scarcity of the World Cup. Okay, the reason people watch the Olympics and want to watch the Olympics is because of the scarcity of it. Okay, people don't watch people running a 100-meter dash because, quite frankly, hooray, a 100-meter dash. Okay, next. Right, seeing people running,
Right.
I can look out in the street and go, oh, look at that guy, he's running a 100-meter dash. Of course, he's running away from the cop, but it's still more entertaining than the guy who's just running. You understand my point?
Yeah,
Right?
I understand your point.
All right, but when you're not watching it every day, and all of a sudden it's the Olympics, everybody wants to watch it, right? There's other things involved in it, but you,
Hmm.
you understand my point, right? They're able to bring
Yeah.
that into a larger context, so it can have these kinds of things, but as the pastime, as the average everyday person wanting to watch, or sports viewer wanting to watch, they want action, they want to see movement, they want to see action going on, right? Um, and that's why people in America today, baseball is more regional now or localized than it is national. To be honest, the what Major League Baseball needs to do is they need to reduce the number of games on a national type of mentality and go back to, okay, these guys all play regionally, and then when they get to a certain level, then we allow them to play like a playoff game where you're no the regions then play each other, and then go to the nationals. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That would work far better for baseball. They would become very popular then, as far as a viewing, people wanting to watch it. If you watch it locally, nobody's going to care, for example, that you're watching the Arizona Diamondbacks if you're not in Arizona, not living in Arizona, because it's not part of that community area. Nobody cares about that,
Yeah.
but you'll be watching Kansas City, for example, right? But you'd have to establish that in those local markets and the local viewing entertainment, and rebuild it back to the way it was before, to where then people go back to, okay, now it's the World Series. I've watched the playoffs and go into it, right? that's that's where I think a lot of these people have gotten it wrong, right? From a national scale. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to a different story. I've been away from stories for a while. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Yep.
Flight from hell. Husband 63 dies beside his wife when liters of blood shoot out of his nose and mouth all over the interior of a plane in front of screaming passengers flying from Bangkok to Germany. If I see somebody
Yeah, I saw this on Twitter.
if I see somebody shooting liters of blood out of his nose and mouth, I'd probably be screaming too.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or I'm the one doing it, but that's a separate.
This,
If I was doing it, it'd be as a joke. Horrified air passengers screamed and were left traumatized yesterday when a German husband. I don't understand why that became an issue to say that it was a husband. Started coughing up liters of blood in front of his wife before collapsing and dying mid-flight. A 63-year-old traveler who has not been named was said to have boarded the Lufthansa flight from Bangkok to Munich, visibly ill before his condition rapidly deteriorated. All right. It was an absolute horror. Everyone was screaming, said fellow passenger Martin Missfelder, all right, 53 from Zurich, Switzerland, all right, told the Swiss outlet Blick. The man who was traveling with his Filipino wife, what difference does it make? Anyway, all right, got on with cold sweats and was breathing much too quickly before passengers rushed to help him, offering chamomile tea and taking his pulse. But as the plane took off, his health quickly went downhill. Well, with all due respect, shouldn't the flight attendant said, "Hey, wait a minute here. You need to go to the
my whole thing is
hospital."
it shouldn't have gotten to that point. He shouldn't have gotten on the plane, period. If he was feeling that ill, he should have never gotten on the plane.
Yeah, why? You're not going to get me to argue. But as the plane took off, his health quickly went downhill. The man was said to have been spitting into a bag when a gush of blood came out of his mouth and nose, splattering the walls of the Airbus A380 aircraft. Okay? The man's wife had initially told the cabin crew that her husband was feeling unwell because they had been forced to run to catch the plane at the Bangkok airport. Um, Let me ask you a question, man. How much international travel have you done?
I haven't done any. But it's
Okay,
like, to me, how does running to catch the plane end in you spilling out liters of blood from your body? I don't get it.
well, here's my problem with this statement. You run to make sure you can get into the plane area where they check all of your documents, right? Then you
Okay.
sit your ass down for an hour or so before they actually board the plane. Okay? And they don't let anybody else come in. At least in the flights that I've taken to Europe. If you miss the specific time you were supposed to be there, they don't just keep letting you in. Okay? So you may have run to make sure you got in line, that you got there to be let in at that specific time, but you're not then let on the plane right away. And then when they do board the plane, they board the plane and they take their sweet ass time about boarding these, especially a 380 for crying outside. That thing's huge, right? I would have thought at that point in time, the rushing part was over. Does that make sense? He shouldn't. If he was
Yeah,
having
that makes
cold
perfect
sweat,
sense.
if he's having cold sweats and things like that, it wasn't because he was rushing anywhere. Because the rushing part was long over. Okay, it was obvious this guy was. having some kind of issue, right?
Agreed.
A flight attendant then reacted and asked him if he was okay, and she was worried. She said Martin, 53-year-old nursing specialist wife Karen, who was sitting with her husband directly behind the couple. When the German was given the green light to stay on board, Karen intervened and told the cabin crew a doctor was urgently needed. The pilot arrived and called the doctor over a loudspeaker. A 30-year-old Polish medic with poor English, all right, then arrived and asked how the man was, took his pulse before indicating that he seemed okay. Huh? No, at that point, you know, you had look. The guy's having a medical condition. We need to get him out of here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
They then gave him a little chamomile tea, and he was already spitting blood into the bag that his wife had held out to him. If he was, the plane then took off. If this guy's spitting blood, no, you're not. Why did you take off? Am I missing something here? Doesn't it sound
Nope.
like he was spitting blood before the plane took off?
That's what it sounded like to me.
Then the plane took off, and the man's condition dramatically deteriorated, spitting blood into the bag before a
Yeah.
gush came out of his mouth and nose. Okay,
It's called cabin pressure.
at that point, don't you like turn the plane around and land back in Bangkok immediately?
I would assume that you would.
They said this thing took off like later on in this story. It says that it after an hour and a half in the flight time, the crew decided to return to Bangkok.
What? So
It,
they didn't turn around and immediately land after the guy croaked.
flight data shows that the plane left Bangkok at 23:50 and landed back in Thailand at 8 8 8:28. Huh?
Wow.
See, I think that this plane was flying for a lot longer than an hour and a half.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole hell of a lot longer than an hour and a half, because you're talking about a little before midnight till about 8:30 in the morning.
I'm just pointing this out. And if this guy was
Like,
spitting up
that's eight and a
blood,
half hours.
I mean, I, math is optional apparently. Just, I'm sorry for the woman. I'm sorry for the loss of the husband and everything else, but I gotta question the Lufthansa group to say why did you take off with this guy? I mean, it sounds to me as if you should have not taken off, and once the person said you were coughing blood, you should immediately turned around. Which, from the way the story reads, makes it sound like was within the first 30 minutes of that plane taking off. At which point they should have turned the damn thing around. At the
Yeah,
very
that's what it sounds like.
right. If you want
It
to say
seems like the increase in cabin pressure is what caused his condition to deteriorate to the point where he was spewing blood from, his mouth and his nose and stuff. So I
well,
mean, it's like, okay.
I suspect that at some point he had a pulmonary aneurysm. All right. Um,
Mm,
this is what happens in pulmonary aneurysms, right? It basically you it's a stroke, which is a bursting blood vessel in your head, right? A
yeah.
pulmonary embolism is basically a blood vessel bursting in your lungs.
Right.
Okay, so they're normally caused by the same thing, blood clots. Okay, blood clots moving causing a blockage happen because people rush it around, and that's one of the things that will cause it. An increase in heart rate temporarily and the dropping will cause a blood clot to move. I do understand
Mm-hmm.
that. Okay, but they should have taken him to the freaking hospital, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
All right, stupid criminal time. I've been talking about stupid criminals all day today, by the way. Cops. Dealer handed out coke samples. Baggie of
Wow.
drug stapled to the suspect's business card.
Oh God. Oh God.
Yeah, I'm a drug dealer. Here's my business card. I'll staple a
Uh,
stamp.
Wow. Okay. Ahem.
In an apparent bid to drum up customers for his drug business, a Canadian man handing out business cards with small samples of cocaine attached. See, it's not always
Good Lord.
American, folks. Syed Amir Razi, 30, distributed the cards outside a casino in Calgary. Investigators learned of the cards in late December and launched a probe that resulted in a February 3rd arrest of Ravi on narcotics possession and trafficking charges.
Oh my God.
just how stupid do you have to be?
Don't ask that question. They're taking it as a personal challenge at this point.
Police search Ravi's
Oh.
auto and residence yielded 50 baggies of cocaine, a digital scale with drug residue, and $1,200 in cash. Cops then seized a box of business cards with the man named Alex Lee. Rozzi had
Oh,
allegedly handed out the cards, which listed Lee as a driver and contained contact information with a small Ziploc bag containing cocaine stapled on it.
oh Lord.
Now, I'll be honest with you. If I was on a business trip and I encountered somebody who handed me a business card like this, the first thing I would think of is Fed. Because no criminal would be this stupid,
Right?
right? They're just trying to catch other stupid people. Who creates?
I don't know. I haven't said much because I have my head folded on my arms on my desk and I'm just shaking my head back and forth. Because this is a level of. It's like just when we think we have found the dumbest thing that could ever possibly come across, whatever we can read, somebody tops. It's like
I mean,
I'm
people do
you're reading
stupid
this.
things.
I'm looking at the headline and my brain is like, what?
Americans do stupid things in front of cops all the time.
Yes.
But
Now we know
this level,
Canadians do stupid shit in front of
this
cops
level
all
of
the time.
stupidity is you don't even have to see it. Eventually, it's like announcing the sign. Please arrest. You might as well put a neon light up there going, I'm going to be dealing drugs here. Please come and get it.
Right? Just pay for one of those car wrapping services and just, have it advertised on your car too. That way they can find your car.
Razavi was released into custody earlier this week and is scheduled for a February 26th court appearance. Why would you release him from custody? Somehow, I don't think he's going to be sitting around waiting to be arrested. Just putting it out there. All right? That sounds like a New York prosecutor, doesn't it?
Mm,
Well, here in San Francisco. Yeah.
right?
Oh my God. Minnesota firefighter rescued deer that fell through the ice. Okay, we'll watch this here. needed the audio. The deer, that's a pretty good sized deer.
Yeah.
Um, I'm surprised it's able to actually move after being in the ice for that long. To be honest,
Well, yeah. I mean, pardon the pun, but it's dumb though.
it's dumb. Now, okay, you got the thing on the ice. It, if I wouldn't be standing in that water anymore. That's a tough sob to be standing in that kind of water. Even with that
Yeah.
suit that he's got on, right? Waiting for
Yeah.
Bambi to finally get moving. Is Bambi ever
Yo,
going to
Bams,
get
I'm
out of
gonna
here?
need you. Right?
Uh, you know,
It's like,
the- the-
yo, Bams, I'm gonna need you to go across the lake, okay?
let's see
Go
if
on.
Bambi ever makes this. This is like 2 minutes into the thing. Bambi still hasn't made. So they're like push
We're
Bambi out.
invested at this point.
Hey, I need more rope.
Yeah. Give me some more slack.
Come on, come on. He's
Go
like,
on.
don't worry, Bambi, I'll save you. Well, that's actually Bambi's mother, probably. Um, you know what's really sad
Come.
is he's probably chasing it into the farmer's field. We're just off the screen as a guy going, I got me a doe.
Oh, right?
Does he ever actually save this thing?
I don't know. Well, I'm gonna assume so. I'm gonna assume so.
You're gonna assume this is a happy ending?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna assume that it made it to dry land, and then whatever happened from there just happened.
It reminds me of that
Cause
story, and I don't know how true this story is, but I would love to have seen it. Where you remember way back, take the Wayback Machine back in the '90s, you had an incident called the Exxon Valdez, where the Exxon Valdez went aground, right, spilled oil into off the coast of Alaska. Right, it was an oil tanker, and they basically ran aground, splitting open the oil tanker and spilled oil everywhere. And for about a 4 week period, the news couldn't get enough of saving the different animals that were covered in crude oil. You remember this?
yeah, I remember it.
Well, supposedly one of the critters that was covered in oil was an otter, which there were sea otters and stuff that were cleaned, and people were going out there with Dawn dish soap, right? Because it was take the grease away,
Yeah.
right? And so they washed the otter, they
Yep.
cleaned the otter up, and then they announced to everybody that they were going to that this otter was now healthy enough to be released back into the ocean, and they made it an event, and they invited local children, especially the kindergarten children, to come watch them release the sea otter back into the wild. And so they released the sea otter back into the ocean. All the kids are on the thing. Everyone's clapping as the sea otter goes out there, swims out a little ways, and it rolled back on its back. That's what they do, right?
Yep.
And then out of nowhere, an orca comes up and sinks beneath the ocean.
Ugh. Whoopsie.
And my comment was, "Oh look." The orca's like, "Hey, look, we got one that's oil covered. I haven't tasted one of these in a while."
Lunch.
No, I don't know how true that story is. But supposedly people had seen it. You never know how true some of those things are, because that was back before people actually had digital cameras and everything. But my God, the point. Can you imagine that? I can believe that. I can believe these stories because there are videos of people doing other dumb things, like a whale had washed up onto the beach and died, right? And had been there for like 2 weeks and started rotting, and people were like, "We got to get the smell out of there," right? So people were like, well, how are we going to get rid of the whale? And the guy said, I know. Let's pack explosives on it and blow it to bits. And so they did. They packed explosive on it, had people come out. They're all watching this, and they blew that freaking whale carcass to bits. And as the pieces of whale carcass started to descend, people started running for their lives. Because this thing it was literally raining over, dead blubber and whale flesh, including chunks that were 100 pounds or so, on the cars and in the parking lot and all sorts of things. It's one of the funniest. You can actually find that video. They have video of that. It is just hilarious. Nobody was like,
Some
"Can't you
people
just
just
get
don't
some
think.
boats off the beach and just drag it out into the ocean?" There are plenty of
Ugh.
people with boats, right?
Oh yeah.
Could you? I mean, you're not worried about hurting the damn animal, so I mean, just towing it should have been relatively simple, right? Am I missing something here?
Nope.
You know, I realize that the whale weighs quite a bit of weight and would take some. You'd need a powerful ship, but I thought that's what tugboats were for. Just putting it out there. Final story of the day. Final story, Manny. Then I'll let you go.
Okie dokie.
Moose chases skier at Wyoming resort. It's a moose. It has right of way. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Just
Now
so
to
people
a
don't
Get the hell out of the
understand,
way.
a moose have right of way. So this guy's that's kind of cool, right?
He is trucking too.
Yeah, that
Mm.
thing was moving. That's, I think the thing was just running. I don't think it was chasing anybody. Oh well, now it looks like it's chasing people. Looks like it was just like running down a ski run, right?
Yeah. I think he was just minding his own damn business.
I was hoping it
Wondering
was
where
trying
all
to
these
plant.
people came from.
I was I was looking to hoping it was trying to trample somebody.
It's just.
Because people are stupid. All right, just to let me,
Hmm.
and I think it's a good lesson for people to learn that don't mess with these things. Right? These things are huge.
Right.
You know. Now, Jackson Hole, I don't think has that many things. It's like this one weighs. They can weigh up. They say they're 7 foot tall. They can get taller than 7 foot with the racks and everything that's on their heads. But it didn't look like it was chasing him. It looked like it was just that one was just like cruising around a little bit.
Yeah, he was just running down the hill. Yeah.
The moose was caught on camera chasing skiers down the slope. I think it was just running down the slope and like couldn't stop. Some of those slopes are pretty steep, and you are on ice, right? I did not have a
Yeah.
moose chasing us down the mountaintop on my bingo card today.
You'll never guess what happened to me on the slopes today, hon.
I gotta admit that's pretty
I got
cool.
chased by a moose.
Things that you things that odd things that come out there for your free square, you have moose chasing you down a ski slope.
Right? Hey, honey, I got chased by a moose on the slopes today. Was it saying anything? Yeah, watch me pull something out of my hat. Oh.
It's a Rocky.
Hey, Rocky. Let me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
It's almost as bad as some of the squirrel ones. All right, folks, that's the Free Willy. That's the last story that I got for today. Hope that you enjoyed the show. Talk to y'all later. Thanks for going out, everyone. Bye bye now.
Take care.